El Grito has been canceled in Chicago because ICE is being sent in. And so this is a Mexican Independence Day festival in Grant Park. They're shutting it down because they're concerned about widespread ICE raids, which is just weird for a lot of reasons. But that's not the principal issue we're here to discuss. We're here to discuss the deployment of the National Guard in Chicago and other cities, and whether it is fascistic takeover or the salvation of these people plagued by crime. We got a great panel here today. Our resident liberals back in town. Who are you? What do you think?
Thank you. I'm Pisco Litty on Twitter. I'm an attorney, and I talk a lot about what the Trump administration is doing. And I, obviously take the position that these deployments, especially of military officials, the National Guard, are not just in the most cases illegal, but also against our history and tradition and the Constitution.
Right on. And to tell him he's wrong.
My name's Joel Webbon. I pastor a church in Georgetown, Texas. It's about 45 minutes north of Austin, Texas. And then I do some streams, Right Response Ministries on YouTube.
I was just assuming you were going to disagree with him because that's kind of the point of the show. But, who knows? And then we brought in this guy from the UK. Actually, we talked about it the other day with Connor, that your perspective might be interesting considering you come from an outside country, though you do have a more conservative bent.
Yeah, well, my country is currently in the grips of anarcho-tyranny, and I actually, I might end up agreeing with you because I want to free the National Guard up so they can come over and help us with our problem. But yeah, Colin Tomlinson, host of Tomlinson Talks on YouTube, writer for Courage Media, and general troublemaker, and hopefully friend of the show, considering you keep having me.
So there's we'll just kick this one off, and I will not be separated from this as I am from the south side of Chicago City proper and grew up in ways that I don't think people should grow up. But to be fair, I will stress this. As bad as it was, the crime that we dealt with in Chicago, the world has been worse for a very, very long time. And things are still pretty good relatively. Not that anyone should tolerate gang violence, but I will begin the debate specifically on the issue of Chicago, and I will speak about how Chicago deals with crime and Trump's plan for sending in the National Guard, and then I will ask you to opine. So there are two strategies being employed that have been, I should say there's a principal strategy that's been employed throughout Chicago for the past several decades, particularly in my neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. That has been done by the Democrats and the liberals. Donald Trump is offering up a new strategy, which is to deploy the National Guard. In the area I grew up, we had a place called the LeClaire Courts. It was basically all black houses and neighborhoods, and because of the violence, specifically and literally from this black neighborhood, coming into other areas, shootings. There's the gang initiations called getting V'd. We had routinely in my neighborhood, which was largely white working class immigrant and Latino. The people from the LeClaire Courts, largely, it was almost entirely black, would come over and just rob you blind, and the cops couldn't do anything about it. And the cops said, the problem is we get sued instantly on racial grounds because we end up arresting a bunch of black people. So the city liberals, the Democrats, said, we have a solution to the problem of crime. They bulldozed all the black people's homes and kicked them out and forced them into poverty and worse circumstances. That was the Democrat strategy. I don't agree with that. I think it's a bad strategy. Donald Trump says, we'll deploy the National Guard. They will not enforce laws. They'll likely just be cleaning up trash. But the strategy here is gangbangers are going to be scared to open fire on crowds when there's a bunch of National Guard standing around. As a Chicago native and resident, I believe it is preferable to take the Donald Trump conservative approach of deploy National Guard, but not to enforce laws, but as a presence, as opposed to the Democrat strategy of tear down the homes of black people and kick them out and make them homeless. What do you think?
Even if it's illegal?
Deploying the National Guard?
Would you support the deployment of the National Guard in a city if it was illegal?
So we're talking about a specific incident in Chicago right now, the real world, not a hypothetical, is it on paper or not? We're dealing with two scenarios. First, I will stress, Trump can legally deploy the National Guard. They just can't enforce the law.
In every circumstance, you think he has unbridled authority to deploy the National Guard whenever he wants? Any National Guard?
So in Chicago, we're talking about an emergency scenario that Trump could declare an emergency.
Well, then you can just answer the question. You can, like, if someone says, for example, in every circumstance, can he deploy the National Guard? You can just say no in some circumstances, right?
Now let's talk about the real world.
Well,
right?
You didn't answer that, right? Not in every circumstance.
There's no absolutes.
Right. So you agree with me, don't you, that there are congressionally imposed limits on the president's use of the National Guard that are found in Article 1 of the Constitution
I would
that
say
Congress...
there are certain circumstances where it would be argued that Trump's deployment of the National Guard is illegal. That is a good thing and he should do it.
It would be argued. I'm just asking an abstract, right? Under the laws of the United States, there are certain federalizations under Title 10 which would be illegal.
So let me answer your question. In some circumstances, it is a good thing that Trump would deploy the National Guard illegally.
Okay. I mean...
And so let's talk about the real world.
Okay.
The real world is Democrats literally, let me pull this up for you. I'll show you my neighborhood. The Democrats bulldozed black people's homes and wiped out their community. Is that what you want to happen?
No.
Well, that's what happened.
But why is... Okay, so they do something bad, so we should deploy,
No, it's
illegal
called
deployment?
It's called, well, what's preferable? The Democrat strategy to bulldoze their homes and make them homeless, or Trump having 84 National Guards standing periodically on street
I'll
corners,
tell you why I would
not
prefer,
enforcing the law.
it's a false dichotomy, but if you were going to force me to choose between bulldozing homes and illegal deployments, at a bare minimum, right, bulldozing homes would be some act that I assume was passed off democratically. But do you agree with that or not?
I just love the idea that it's like, hey, we got a problem with crime in the black community, so the Democrats of Chicago destroyed all their houses.
No, but I'm telling you it's a false dichotomy, but like...
That's what they did.
You understand that, like, I don't know that you're representing that, what happened. I'm taking your representation.
I'll show you
on good faith, but
Google
assume
Earth.
that. Like, why does that affect whether or not we should support an illegal deployment of the National Guard?
It sounds like you're putting a lot of emphasis on the legality. So to use the dichotomy that Tim presented, the idea of black people's homes being bulldozed, you mentioned, well, at least that would come about, we would presume, democratically. Does that make it just to you?
Just because something is brought about democratically doesn't mean that it's just, but there are longer-term interests in the survival of the country that are at stake when you just, don't think about the constitutional framework and history of our country, which was particularly worried with standing armies. As libertarians, you guys must be concerned. I assume that you believe in rights, right?
Yes, I believe that there are natural rights. What are some examples? I'm just curious.
I wonder.
I'm not familiar with you, but what's an example of nationalizing, federalizing the National Guard in order to go into some situation?
So just real quick, this is 48th West 44th Street. This is a couple blocks from where I grew up. And it's all just beautiful, lush fields surrounded by fences. That's what it is. I wonder if I can go back in time. Oh, yeah, look at this. That's where black people used to live. Huh. Look at all these houses. They fucking destroyed because instead of saying we want to deal with the crime, they went in, evicted all of the black people and ripped their homes down.
I'm not sure about the particulars of this, Tim, but like we're not here to discuss.
Sure.
Was this
my neighborhood.
Smart or not? I mean, if this happened in your neighborhood, I'm really sorry about that. But we're not here to discuss this, right? Are we here to discuss the bulldozing of homes? Or are we here to discuss
2011,
the National Guard?
We're here to discuss what is the solution to the problem of crime, and is it? You can make the argument that there's a pie in the. Actually, let me put it this way. I from this neighborhood, growing up in Chicago. Who have lost friends to the gang violence and the crime and the drug trade, who have friends who've witnessed corpses being dragged down alleys, who was personally shot at. The hot dog stand, the little shop that was 2 blocks from where I grew up, had bullet holes in its bulletproof windows. And I don't want to pretend like that's the apocalypse, because I know that life was bad when we all lived in the woods and were fighting each other in war in Europe or Asia or whatever it may have been. I get it. Science technology has improved, but children shouldn't grow up in places like this. Crime shouldn't be this way. Now, my whole life, I've been told by Democrats, the solution is not to arrest these people and to let them go. And when the crime got so bad and the people were so pissed off that it wasn't tenable anymore, what did they do? They literally just destroyed the black neighborhood. The city decided to go in and bulldoze everything and rip it out of the ground and evict all of these people. I don't think that's a solution either. All that's going to do is shuffle it under the rug and make more crime. So that strategy didn't work. I'm not saying these are the only plays. Donald Trump's play is the estimates are about 80 National Guard per city. And what they'll likely be doing is picking up trash. They do not have the authority to enforce the law, local law. But the idea is, in these areas where gangs come into, like Vidham Park, where I grew up, where you'd see 15 black teenagers come into our neighborhood and just steal everything from you. They won't do it when there are 2 National Guardsmen standing there with rifles.
Will you condemn the National Guard if they help execute a search warrant for ICE?
Why?
Because you said that you wouldn't be in favor of them enforcing civilian law.
I didn't say that.
Would you be in favor of the National Guard enforcing immigration law?
Should there be a declared emergency under color of law and it's legal and allowed?
Well, one of the ways in which you're trying to sell this is you're saying they're just going to be standing there as a presence, a show of force.
That's the argument.
I think that is by itself also problematic under our history and framework of our Constitution, where we're specifically scared of standing armies, and the founders especially, right? They have every 2 years, right? The army lapses. There's a requirement in the Constitution.
You're not arguing what I'm talking about.
What I'm trying to say is there's a big concern to have military domestic presence of the military.
No, there
isn't. You said, one of the way that you were there isn't in our history?
No. Don't. Where are you from? Are you from Chicago?
I'm from New York.
Oh, you're from New York. Yeah. I find it very difficult, having experienced the things that I did, to have people not from this place tell me that I don't want National Guard in my home.
I didn't say that. I said our history.
Yeah, okay, I get that. I am begging Donald Trump to send in the National Guard to put an end to this shit.
But part of the way that you're selling it is, don't worry, they're not going to enforce civilian law. That's part of what you're selling.
I said the plan was this. And I also said in some circumstances, an illegal deployment of the National Guard would be good. Oh. What's your solution to this? What's your solution?
I don't know. We're not here to discuss my broader solution to crime.
You don't have one.
Wait, we're not here to discuss my broader solution to crime, are we? Are we here to discuss crime generally, or the deployment of the National Guard and the military? Whether that's something we support.
The underlying issue of the deployment of the National Guard is the crime.
It's because of murder. It's because of the crime.
Okay, because of murder, we think that we should deploy the military. So would you be in favor of...
I think you need to do whatever it takes to make murder stop.
Even doing illegal stuff, right?
Yeah, because
what is illegal?
Is that right?
He who saves his country violates no law.
So this is the fascinating thing. Legal and illegal.
You say fascism. You say, is this fascism? And what I'm hearing right now is, it doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal. We're going to support.
Right. So you support the legal destruction of the black neighborhoods?
No, I mean, I don't know that you're representing it fairly, but
I just showed you.
Okay, just because they tear down a neighborhood doesn't mean it was done in violation of like the rights of these people, or it was done. Hang on. But you agree?
The legal destruction of the black community is okay. Is that what you said?
So just to be clear, you would agree that just because a neighborhood was bulldozed does not mean that that was the wrong thing to do, right?
Say that one more time.
You're representing me for the first time, the fact that this neighborhood was bulldozed. I can't comment on it other than to say, if you're representing it correctly, that it was all done unfairly,
well, I'll put it like
bad
this.
motive, then sure, it was wrong thing to do. But that doesn't bear on whether or not the National Guard deployment is okay.
Do you think that Donald Trump's argument for the deployment of the National Guard is legitimate, or is he making excuses?
It's illegitimate, obviously.
So in Chicago, there's not going to be a single Democratic politician who's going to come out and tell you, because crime got so bad, we flattened the black community. They're not going to say that.
Yeah, but why are we playing this game of whataboutism when we're like, okay, the Democrats had a bad policy on crime. By the way, they've had multiple bad policies on crime over the course of decades and decades and decades.
It's not whataboutism. It's quite simple. It's for decades, for generations. The Democrat policies, the liberal plans, the plans you're presenting, and the counter that you're making to Donald Trump has failed and has resulted in people that I know being dead. And the response from the city was, of course, they're going to give platitudes. We're going to beautify the area. And they don't say, hey, the gang violence, murder has gotten so bad and the drug dealing so
why not have the military enforce the civilian law?
So deploying the National Guard is Trump's plan. And I say, I'll fucking take it. I will take it.
So you would support the military enforcing civilian law, including immigration?
In Chicago, 100%.
Yeah.
Because this is an emergency.
So no one should believe you when you're doing this whole thing of, don't worry, they're just going to be standing there. You know they're not.
You're lying. I didn't say that.
He was just saying that's the plan. He's not saying
that's not the plan, because we saw what happened in L.A. And in L.A., they weren't just standing there. They were helping execute warrants. They were going and doing enforcement actions on cannabis farms. They were, making perimeters. They were doing arrests and searches. So it's not just the case.
That's allowed.
Their whole well, hang on. That's
not illegal.
That's enforcement of civilian law.
And that's fine.
Okay, the law says it's not.
No, that's not correct. You're lying.
Okay.
Under certain circumstances, the president has the authority to invoke the National Guard to enforce national law, a local law.
Not under posse comitatus.
That's the Army, not the National Guard.
The
Army and the Marines.
That applies to the National Guard and federal service.
The Army and the Marines can enforce a domestic law if an emergency is declared and Trump invokes the Insurrection Act.
The posse comitatus applies to National Guard troops called in federal service.
Sure.
Okay, so it does apply to them. It does.
So there's two circumstances where the National Guard has more leeway to enforce domestic law when the law is not being enforced. We've gone over this for years now. Even liberals made the argument. If local law is not being enforced, the president has the right to call upon the state National Guard. Trump can bring in military, actual Marines and Army to enforce local laws if he invokes the Insurrection Act. He did not do that.
So you think that there was an insurrection? Do you think there was an insurrection in L.A.?
Define.
Well, I don't know, under your vision of it, right? I mean, you would
So
say the invocation of the Insurrection Act.
The Mexicans were waving their own flags inside your country and declaring that they were going to take over a state for the race. I think that probably qualifies.
Yeah,
That is a problem.
it's funny that we have a UK person coming here to talk to me about the First Amendment, not my country.
Hold on.
In this country,
that's why we
in this country, we have a right to expression. And also, by the way, I think it's even
He's got you there.
it's even extra funny. I just want to finish this and I'll let you finish. So it's even extra funny because the whole purpose that our constitutional structure and history is so fearful of standing armies has to do with British deployments of the military in the United States for like the Boston Massacre, et cetera. And so, yes, we don't need your lessons on military deployments or the First Amendment.
Okay, there's no need to be petty. I was actually going to ask you a question in very good faith, so I would rein that in, please. The constitutional statutes that you're appealing to, forgive my ignorance, which specific parts and when were they written?
So 1878, I think, is Posse Comitatus. That's after, and the history is really helpful here because it was after President Grant's deployment of troops in the southern states, the reaction to that, and after the Hayes-Tilden election, they passed Posse Comitatus specifically because troops were in the South enforcing federal law, enforcing civilian law, and they didn't like that. And so Congress passed Posse Comitatus. And so, yeah, the history really, really helps my case here.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to refute. I was asking a sincere question. What you're being unnecessarily defensive. I'm not being combative with you. The point I'm going to lead with this is that's all well and good, but the appeal to the justification of the law appeals to a context which no longer applies. Because the reason those laws were written was an internal conversation about limits, checks and balances on the undue application of power within a homogenous population, right? The current problem that America has is they're in a state of emergency. They've imported, 10 to 15 million illegals in the last 4 to 5 years alone. The crime is out of control because of foreign investment in DAs in progressive cities, and they treat the criminals like the victims of society. So if the local authorities are not going to enforce the law and they're going to put people's lives at risk, then yes, the federal government has a duty to step in and safeguard its citizens, because if on the ground the DAs are ideologically bankrupt and endangering people, it is morally justified to have the military step in and reinforce order.
Let me ask you a question. You keep bringing up legality as if it's some basis for morality. What the Nazis did was legal is the most famous argument. Obviously, it was not good. So color of law is not a justification or an argument against
I basically think that there's I want to address your context argument because I think it's one that people bring up, so I will address it afterwards. I think that there's a certain threshold that we apply in terms of severity. Everyone has that you're not going to respect the laws of North Korea. You're not going to respect the laws of the Nazi regime. But I really, really value our constitutional system and structure and our history. It has produced the most prosperous, most powerful country in the history of the world. We're right now at the height of our power. And so I want to protect that system because it seems to produce really, really, really good results and protect domestic liberty. So, you'd have to have you said yourself, it's not like we can't live. You said it yourself at the start of the conversation. We've had worse times. And so it sounds to me like we haven't met that threshold, at least in your mind, that we're going to throw away our constitutional scheme of government. That's ridiculous.
Who said that?
Okay, and I want to address your context.
That's a ridiculous straw man that no one argued.
So all I'm saying is the good here is to protect our history, our Constitution.
What is the circumstance by which Trump can legally deploy the National Guard?
It depends. He has different authorities to legally deploy the National Guard.
Emergency.
Can I address his context?
Emergency is one of them.
It depends which kind of emergency. So
like which one?
So for example, the title he invoked in California, it's rebellion. It's invasion, none of which are present, and an inability to enforce law.
How define invasion?
Well, okay. Why should I have to define invasion right now as we speak?
Because you said Trump cited invasion.
He did not cite invasion. He cited the statute which calls invasion. So he's not pretending there's invasion. He does pretend there's invasion for purposes of the Alien Enemies Act, which has been rejected now even by the Fifth Circuit.
Let's start over. We'll slow down. What was the basis by which Trump justified the deployment of the National Guard?
He said that there was a rebellion. Do you agree with that in LA?
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's semantic.
So you agree that you agree that there was a rebellion in LA. I just want to hear you say January 6th was a rebellion.
In what way?
You just said so certainly you mean something when you said you agreed that what happened in LA with ICE was a rebellion. You have your own standard for what you meant by rebellion. So clearly that applies to January 6th, doesn't it?
In January 6th, was there a foreign government saying that their people were agitating on behalf of
I don't know what you're talking about. That the Scheinbahn represent that the Mexican residents were doing. They were waving flags. They were waving foreign flags on January 6th. They were waving Georgian flag, the country of Georgia flag. They were waving.
Was the head of Georgia agitating for Georgian national citizens or ethnically Georgian?
That turns on whether something is a rebellion.
Or invasion.
So whether or not they're waving a flag and whether a foreign country
is saying that these are our shock troops to leverage political
that changes in your mind whether something is a rebellion or not.
Or an invasion, yes. Of course it does.
The important thing to consider is the legal definition versus the colloquial or the semantic as interpreted by different individuals. The thing about January 6th is that I would argue certainly some of those people thought they were engaged in insurrection or rebellion. That's
not whether they thought, whether you called it and are willing to call it
a
rebellion. But you are willing to call L.A., what happened in L.A., the violence that occurred in L.A., a rebellion. Why is that?
So with January 6th, it was disorganized and random. Some of you make this look on your face, but you interrupted me before I can make my point.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the people who shut up certainly did have the intent to disrupt the electoral vote count. I think I have no problem with these people being criminally charged, locked up, and I think you go to prison for this, especially fighting cops. Was there an organized effort to bring people to January 6th for that purpose? It does not appear to be the case. That's why they didn't actually charge anybody under insurrection or anything like that.
They charge people of seditious conspiracy, which is designed to
indeed
bring people there to
incorrect.
What do you?
That was specifically among Oath Keepers and Proud Boys, specifically among those.
So they were engaged in rebellion, weren't they?
Group of individuals.
Were they engaged in rebellion?
That's actually an argument to be made. I would argue no.
Why not? Why were they not engaged in rebellion?
Let's roll, baby.
Did you
see with the ICE riots, where you have the federal law, you have federal government going in specifically to enforce a law, an organized group of people putting out flyers and saying, for the purpose of this, we will come out and engage in violence, is different, right? Not everybody in LA engaged in this is the point I'm making. People at January 6th.
Not everyone at January 6th did either. Not everyone in LA did either.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
So when they went and arrested J6ers, and I said they should have been, what's the problem?
We're not talking about arrest. We're talking about whether or not something is categorized as a rebellion. You were quite willing,
and they did not
to call what happened in LA a rebellion
for the purpose of deploying law enforcement to put a stop to it. As I would agree with January 6th. Yes, we're in agreement.
Oh, so January 6th was a rebellion?
No.
Okay.
This is
help me out here.
So you're playing a semantic game instead of actually arguing.
I think you're playing the game here. I think
the game is actually quite simple. In both circumstances, law was invoked to deploy law enforcement to stop a riot. I agree with both circumstances in LA and DC to stop the riots.
LA was more organized, and that changes whether it's a rebellion or not.
Among the people who organized it for the intention, be it LA or January 6th, they were engaged.
Even though they were organized in Jan, I mean, come on, you know that they were organized in Jan 6. I mean, not just because not everyone is part of the plan. They were people who were organized with a specific seditious
So if my
purpose.
argument is that there were some people on Jan 6 that intended to overthrow, to stop the vote count, most didn't, and there were some people in LA that were intending to stop federal government from engaging in law enforcement, which is, under the law, the same thing, insurrection or rebellion.
So in terms of frustrating the federal purpose,
so they're the exact same thing. Okay. I'm calling them the same thing. I'm saying law enforcement should have done the same thing, and you're choosing one to be and one not to be.
No, hang on. You're saying that what happened in LA was a rebellion, and what happened in Jan 6 wasn't. You're saying that there's a distinction there.
I'm saying that there was an organized effort among leftist activists across California. We did not see that as a coordinated effort with January 6th. However, some people on January 6th did have that intent, and if the government were to say, we are going to invoke the same act for the deployment of law enforcement to stop these violent actions, that is acceptable. We agree on that.
So rebellion is a type of prolonged insurrection. Okay, insurrection is the broader term here, and rebellion is a subset of it. And insurrection is levying war against the United States. It's a type of treason, all right? And levying war, and it has 4 elements to it: an assemblage, a public purpose, the use of force or intimidation, and to frustrate a U.S. law and basically to violate a U.S. law. And so I would, because I'm consistent, I would say that there are some things.
You're not.
And I am consistent in LA that would, under the historical definition of insurrection, qualify as an insurrection.
So let's
hang on a second. I am consistent though, because I use that historical definition. I don't know what definition you guys are using, which is like somehow a foreign country has some role into whether something is an insurrection. Like, where are you getting that definition from?
Invasion. You cited invasion. He pointed out invasion.
But Trump did not cite an invasion for his invocation of the National Guard.
You said he did.
So we should no. I said he cited a statute which includes one of the purposes in it: invasion, rebellion, or inability to.
So invasion is included. So let's make something clear.
He did not make a finding that
on January 6th, a large portion of the people who were arrested and charged did not engage in insurrection, did not engage in rebellion, did not riot, did not fight with police, did not tear down barricades, did not smash windows. There were people who showed up an hour after police had cleared everybody out. The doors were still open. The paths were still clear. I've interviewed some of these people. I have met them. One couple, they were in their late 50s, showed up an hour after everything had stopped, walked up the stairs to open doors, walked in, looking around, shrugged and left, and got convicted and sentenced to 18 months in jail. This is the distinction.
What is that? That's a distinction in terms of whether something is an insurrection or rebellion?
When we're talking about the whole of January 6th, we can't put a blanket on every single person who was arrested and
That's what I'm
charged.
trying to do.
So I want to make sure that's clear then. So you're not
I'm not trying to say that everyone who didn't
So,
engage in insurrection.
I will put it I will put it very simply. There were people who intended to stop the vote count. Many of these people were violent. They should go to jail. They should be convicted.
Did they engage in insurrection?
It's tough to say because we're talking about two different things. The legal, which is infringing, like
Under
stopping,
the legal, under what you understand the legal standard to be.
There's a difference between the constitutional, what insurrection is, and when the president can invoke the Insurrection Act. That's the debate we had several months ago, which regular people don't understand the distinction. The Insurrection Act refers to trying to overthrow the governments, right? I'm sorry, the 14th Amendment statement about insurrection. This is what the Supreme Court ruled. However, the Insurrection Act is just when someone is
Black Lives Matter wasn't an insurrection under the constitutional test, even though you called it an insurrection.
That was under the Insurrection Act, which is the point I'm making right now. The Insurrection Act is when local law is not being enforced or individuals are stopping the federal government from enforcing law.
So why hasn't Trump invoked the Insurrection Act?
Yeah, I should. Fuck yeah, I should.
But he hasn't. And until he does, don't you think that you need to analyze? Like, you're basically saying that you don't care to analyze whether Trump's actions are legal or not under the current authorities
that is a huge leap that is not part of the
do you care to analyze whether his actions are legal, or if they're illegal, are you going to say who cares if it's illegal? That's what I'm kind of getting at. Is like, should I even bother?
We've already analyzed that they're legal, and they are. And
we haven't analyzed, but I'm saying that they're illegal.
Bro, Abby Phillips, all the liberals were like, yeah, Trump can do this.
Just because Abby Phillips says that doesn't mean that she's right. Come on, man. You're going to trust CNN?
Making the point CNN says it's that true. The liberal narrative, except for you, is that while Trump can deploy National Guard, so long as they're picking up trash and not enforcing law.
It's not true. Gavin Newsom is in court right now. They just had a ruling that what he did in California violated posse comitatus.
He won. The latest appeal was that the restrictions are lifted.
No, hang on. No.
It's gone back and forth like 3 or 4 times.
The latest was that there was a trial on posse comitatus, and Judge Breyer found that they did, in fact, violate posse comitatus.
The latest was that the restrictions were lifted and Trump
Breyer himself stayed his own order to let the Ninth Circuit percolate. They're already reviewing it, whatever. All that is to say is it's a live issue under the courts, and it's a separate issue whether or not the courts are able to review it and whether or not he's following the law.
Can I just
what he said, because he had something very interesting. He was basically saying this is a wholly different context, and so me trying to apply posse comitatus, a law that's on the books, to the conduct now, it's removing and divorcing the context of 1878 and applying it and misapplying it in the current day. That's not true. We're fighting the same battles that we're doing now, like that they were. They were having an immigration problem, according to them, in the 1870s too. The first restrictive immigration law they passed was the Page Act in 1875, and there was a great deal of Chinese immigration that was happening that people were pissed about in that era. So I don't really think that the difference here in context is the immigration pattern. If anything, we're fighting the same separation of powers issues that we're doing today as they were back in the day.
So we had this debate a couple months ago. And I know you commented after the fact, and I think this is sophistry on your part and the liberals. During the BLM riots, there's a clip that liberals shared where I said, this is an insurrection. The previous context in the greater form, the long form of what I said was, here's the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act says that if local law is not being enforced or that individuals are using violence to stop the enforcement of federal law, that qualifies for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act and send the National Guard. This qualifies as an insurrection in that context. Then when it came to January 6th, the context liberals brought up was that this large body of people that were rioting were trying to overthrow the United States government. It's an insurrection. To which I said, no, they're not trying to overthrow. Most of those people had no idea what the fuck was going on.
But where are you getting that insurrection means you're trying to take over the government?
That was the argument liberals made under the 14th Amendment.
Where are you getting this notion that insurrection only means when you try to overthrow the government? I literally
just defined
that. So then why would you ever contest whether Jan 6 was an insurrection?
So we'll try this again.
Yeah.
That was literally.
You're saying under the Insurrection Act, things that wouldn't be insurrections, which, by the way, I agree with you. There are some things under the Insurrection Act.
No one colloquially would think that a handful of BLM rioters smashing windows was trying to overthrow the U.S. government.
No, where are you
I mean, some people might say that.
No, but what I'm saying is the underlying assumption that to do an insurrection, that either colloquially or under the historical legal frameworks, that is what is needed to qualify as an insurrection, that you would need to overthrow the government. Like, why is the assumption?
We've pulled up a numerous Cornell.
Where are you getting this
and read
definition
the
that
law.
Insurrection means to overthrow the government? Where are you getting
that was semantic during the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC.
Where are you getting the notion?
New York Times, CNN, MSNBC.
So New York Times, CNN said that insurrection means you're overturning the government. That's what insurrection means.
That's literally, yes.
No, and no.
So
points
during the court case over whether Donald Trump was disqualified under the 14th Amendment for insurrection, the corporate press was running the line. Their narrative was, that's why I said it's colloquial or semantic as opposed to the legal. That's why the distinction was that Trump tried to overthrow the U.S. government. And that's what the 14th Amendment meant because of the Civil War. That was the public debate.
But the South wasn't trying to overthrow the Washington, D.C. government.
I agree.
In the Civil War. So if you're saying that they're referencing the Civil War and that they're incorporating the Civil War
standard, don't look at me. This is the debate.
No one was arguing that insurrection means you're trying to overthrow the government. And that's the absurd argument that Trump was trying to say. Trump was trying to argue in court saying to be an insurrection, you need to really try to overturn the government.
That's what the liberals were saying.
No, that's not what the liberals were. The liberals were saying it's a lesser standard than that. That's why they were trying to disqualify.
Oh, that's ridiculous, dude.
No,
the idea that you could disqualify a candidate for being in a BLM riot is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Hang on, but they.
You know what? Wait, hold on. Wait. I agree with you.
It applies to previous oath takers.
I agree.
So do you agree that Jan 6 was an insurrection?
Yes.
Wait, but unironically, you think Jan 6 is an insurrection?
Yeah, Trump shouldn't be allowed to run ever.
I know, but you're being ironic now. But
I'm not.
I'm totally like asking you for real.
I'm actually being an opportunist.
Okay.
Trump's disqualified. And if that means he's out next year, okay. Because holy shit, that disqualifies so many
Well, he's not looking
Democrats.
so good, is he? Health-wise.
That disqualifies the Newsom. It disqualifies so many of these people. It's amazing. I'm down. Let's go. I'm agreed.
So you're agreeing with the meaning of a word based on how you intend to use it? That's how
you guys are doing.
Well, don't you criticize
Should we disqualify Gavin
lefties
Newsom?
for saying you define women however you want to meet with like what you think is correct?
Should Kamala Harris be disqualified from ever holding office?
No, of course not. She didn't engage in
Now
insurrection.
Yes, she did. She funded these people.
No. I mean, so first of all, we can talk about that specific tweet where she like retweeted a bail fund.
Trump didn't engage in insurrection then.
So I don't think engagement in insurrection also has a historical legal definition, and it doesn't include
Look.
pushing for people to have relief.
If the argument is Donald Trump engaged in insurrection because he was a lighter standard under the law, then I say Kamala Harris applies in the exact same way.
You actually think about, Tim, what the standard
Not that I
is.
think Kamala's actually
you actually have to think about what the standard is, though. Like the standard isn't just it's a lower standard so anyone can fall under it. You need to actually apply the standard. But it's all to show that if he wants to invoke the Insurrection Act, he should do so. He hasn't invoked the Insurrection Act. And so we should assess his actions deploying the National Guard under the legal frameworks.
If Donald Trump doesn't get to be president anymore, but it means that any Democrat who's ever supported a riot can't run for office, I'm down.
Okay, but
Republicans tend not to do that. Not that I like the Republicans.
mere support is not engagement in insurrection all the time. But I do want to
let's bring it back to Chicago.
Yeah, let's go to Chicago. So that deployment, if he's anticipating using the military to enforce civilian law, you don't have a problem with that as a libertarian?
No.
So you wouldn't have a problem with him doing it in Tennessee or doing it in Arkansas or doing it in any of these red states that have higher crime rates?
Depends on the circumstance, I suppose.
Why do the red states have higher crime rates?
I'm assuming you want me to say.
I'm
assuming you want me to say because there are black people there.
There's a lot of strength.
I think you're specifically saying some cities in these red states have higher crime.
Some cities in these red states have higher crime than DC.
Yeah, I don't think you're saying red states have higher crime.
Yeah, because of strength.
Why?
Diversity being our greatest strength.
Yes.
Yeah, so whatever the cause is, we're just talking about whether we would support the deployment. So I'm just asking you.
I got
red states to make a political point there. That's the point.
No, I'm saying red states in terms of the reason why he's not deploying red states is because he has relationships with these governors, and that's why he's doing it.
Yeah,
it's political.
I don't think he was saying red states have higher crime. I think he was saying there are some red states that have cities with high crime Trump's not deploying to.
Right.
And we all know why.
I do have to bring this up. It's kind of a non sequitur, but I think it's relevant to the zeitgeist and the shift culturally. I've been talking about how on Instagram, have you seen these Instagram viral threads? There's the George Floyd ones. And
George Droid? Those ones?
There's those. Yeah. But there's I call it Floydgate, where now I think we're seeing largely Indian people are making any AI George Floyd videos. It's like it's one thing when Derek Chauvin's stealing fried chicken from George Floyd. It's another when it's just George Floyd with his baby and his baby saying "dada," which is like it's getting crazy. But there's a string of videos that are appearing on Instagram that are just racist jokes and targeting everybody. There's videos making fun of fat white trash people, but a lot of these anti-Indian, I shouldn't call it anti-Indian, but mocking Indians, where it's like there's one where a judge goes, "For scamming, you are being sentenced to a 15-minute shower," and the Indian guy goes, "No, please, not a shower." And then it shows an Indian guy screaming in a shower. They have millions of views. The reason I bring this up is there was a video that my friend told me about, who is not political. This is a dude who does not engage in politics at all and knows nothing about it. And he said Instagram suggested a Nick Fuentes reel where Fuentes was saying, everybody knows that the crime is coming from the black neighborhoods. Nobody wants to live there. He says it's irresponsible to bring your wife and child to black neighborhoods. And everybody knows when you talk about shootings and crime, you're talking about black people in black neighborhoods. That has millions of views. And people I know that, like, again, I'm stressing this, who don't engage in politics on Instagram, who are watching videos of Legos and Star Wars, got recommended that. That is crazy that Instagram is promoting that in their algorithm and that people are sharing it. And all the comments were like, Fuentes is right.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? What do you, so
I'm saying
are
that
you
the perception,
yeah.
when you brought up, you made the comment to Connor about saying something about black communities, whether it is true or not is not material to what I'm pointing out. I'm pointing out that there is one, big tech is allowing the narrative and pushing it. And there are many people who are now coming out publicly saying, yes, that's what I believe.
Yeah, so I think this is exactly, if there is a problem in terms of the perception here with respect to, race, that's even more of an issue that we wouldn't want the government to be overstepping its legal bounds in terms of authoritarianism and in terms of this deployment.
Why?
Because if we are concerned that people will make these kinds of stereotypes and it will infringe on other foundational protections like equal protection, I think that would be even more concerning.
What if they're true?
That black people, well, it is true that black people disproportionately commit more crime than white people.
Right.
So
then what's the problem with
No, the problem is the potential rights deprivation. That would you be okay with, for example, there being a lower standard to stop black people than white people go?
Yes.
So you're in favor of, so just to be clear.
If it saves people's lives, yes.
Okay, so you're in favor of black people having a lower standard of stop than white people. This is where this kind of thinking gets. So when you ask, like, is this fascism? This is the kind of fascistic
It's not
thinking.
fascism.
I do want to make
hang on. Sorry, Tim. I have to. It's not fascism. Inequality is not fascism. Fascism is the sublimation of everybody to the state. It is a coherent philosophy. It's a stupid philosophy, but it's a coherent philosophy. Saying fascism is just saying, oh, you're noticing differences, therefore you're evil. Okay?
No, I'm not. No. You're not just noticing differences.
Yes.
I was happy to say that the stats show that disproportionately black people, Hispanic people commit more crime than white people. I'm happy to notice things. What you said is not just notice it, but you want to apply a different constitutional standard. That
No,
is
I
to
didn't
say,
say constitutional standard.
a different search and seizure. Well, search and seizure is adjudged under a constitutional standard, the Fourth Amendment. So under that amendment, there's no like black people get less search and seizure protections than white people. And you said, I just want to be clear. I'll give you an opportunity to retract it. Black people should have lower rights under that search and seizure
lower
standard.
rights. You're being very disingenuous.
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm saying there should be
lower it for everybody, because right now
that's fair.
we've got a ton of murder, and those who are innocent will be protected. You have
So
those
white
who are
people should be
innocent have
treated the
nothing to
same
fear.
as black people. Is that right?
Hang on.
Yeah.
Hang on. Legally speaking, that's fine. But you would be justified in certain neighborhoods, which are disproportionately black, to have a harsher search and seizure policy. Like as in more police presence, more stop and search, because it would save lives.
But hang on, a presence
And you can do
because
it based off of region.
if you're doing
The region, like it or not, overlaps with ethnicity.
okay, but
What's
you
the
could do a
melanin count?
deployment.
You can say, no, this area.
You don't need to get a color swatch out.
You could do a deployment based on crime, and it happens to coincide.
But it's not going to happen to coincide.
But that's not what you said. I asked.
No. It's not going to happen to coincide. That's just the honesty about it. You're going to deploy it to black neighborhoods to save the lives of black people and other people that stumble.
Let me ask this real quick. What do you think about saying that transgenders can't buy guns?
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous, right?
Why?
Because the Second Amendment protects people's individual right to own guns. Right?
Yeah, but what if they're a biochemical engineered ticking time bomb to kill Christian children?
If they are that,
Yeah.
okay. If they are a biological ticking time clock, that's bad. But not every trans person is a biological ticking time bomb, and it wouldn't justify it. So you could say that about any group, right?
Well, maybe.
But hang on a second. Wait, understand this logic. You acknowledge that there have been Christian nationalist shooters, right?
I mean,
It's questionable?
I'd have to look at the person
At
and
least
determine
one?
whether or not they're a Christian nationalist.
Do you think that there hasn't been at least one Christian nationalist shooter?
Again, I'd have to look at that guy and see his views to tell
Okay.
you what I'm a Christian nationalist.
Okay.
There are plenty of people who call themselves Christian nationalists
do violence,
who are not
right?
Christian nationalists.
Okay.
They are not.
They at least self-report as Christian nationalists.
There are always retorted
Some
people, yes.
self-identifying, if some self-identifying Christian nationalists went out and committed a shooting,
Here's the difference.
Would you be like, okay, well, they're ticking time bombs of violence, so we
No,
should take away their
absolutely
gun rights?
not.
Are they on
Because
drugs?
there's a
Not.
difference
But-
in
but
somebody
what drugs are
having
they
a
on?
certain view versus somebody literally being chemically engineered to be crazy. These hormones actually, we're talking about a biological shift that makes someone unstable.
I have a question for Pisco.
Yeah.
Because you said no, right? Like trans people should be allowed to have guns.
Yes. Do you agree?
Do you believe that? I think the answer is yes. I think they should be allowed to have guns. I don't think the Second Amendment says that you have the right to keep and bear arms unless you're found deficient by the state. But do you think under the DSM-5 certain mental disorders would disqualify you from owning guns?
Correct. Yeah. But transgenderism is not a mental disorder.
So this is important.
Yeah.
What you're
is.
basically saying
It
is
should
that
be.
you have a personal opinion.
It should be.
Hold on. What you're saying is, here's a list of mental disorders. You have an opinion that some should or should not be disqualifying.
Yeah.
I think none of them should be disqualifying.
Okay, so schizophrenic should be allowed to own guns?
Yes.
No.
The Second Amendment says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You got a problem with it? Amend it.
Okay. I mean,
Then amend it.
I think that Scalia,
Agreed.
Scalia and Heller said that there are certain categories, just because it's the
Wrong.
same thing with free speech.
Yep.
He's wrong.
Indeed. And so is Kavanaugh. And so this is where we get to an interesting argument where you, I believe, are putting subjective morals onto the Constitution, which you accused us of doing. My argument is this. The Founding Fathers were pretty dang clear when they were drafting the Constitution, the reasons for why they were doing it, and what the Second Amendment says. We as a society cannot exist with a written Constitution where we arbitrarily decide without amending it that we've changed it.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with that. And I don't think that I'm amending it by incorporating some standards that were then existing. That's what the Bruin case recently, which was much more protective of Second Amendment rights than before. I mean, we have a big protection of Second Amendment in recent cases.
Kids had guns.
But why do you value the Second Amendment more than like the militia clauses for purposes of like the standing army situation? The Second Amendment, if anything, is reifying, is promoting the militia, right? The state-run militias.
Wrong.
A well-regulated militia being necessary. No,
What does regulated mean?
I understand. Yeah.
What does regulated mean?
Yeah. So I understand that like the Second Amendment also incorporates an individual right. I'm not just
What does
saying
regulated
I'm
mean?
not saying so. Regulation means government restriction. It
does not.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Who are
Training
the regulars?
and also
who are the regulars?
Yeah. So in training as well. And so government.
Okay.
The government
Hold on.
ability
Slow down.
to train.
I don't want to gloss over this.
Yeah.
Who were the regulars?
The states were in charge of running their militias.
Who were the regulars?
Oh, sorry. The regulars.
Is it proper noun?
Yeah. So a regular militia people were of the community. I don't know what you mean by regulars in that context.
Okay, so the soldiers of the British Army were called regulars.
Yeah.
Regulation back then, in this context, referred to functioning, not government sanctioned.
So the Second Amendment anticipates the use of the militia, which are people like not regulars in that sense,
Exactly.
but are part of the community, are members of that's what the militia was.
Regulated in this context means their guns should be functioning and equipped.
Again, I'm not having a Second Amendment debate with you on the merits. I'm just telling you that the Second Amendment does, as understood by the Supreme Court, anticipate some individual rights. So I'm not contesting that.
The point I'm bringing
saying
up
is,
with
why
this-
do you value that right over the other restrictions in the Constitution, giving to Congress the ability to regulate the militia and to set forth for calling forth the militia that Trump is violating? So you seem to respect one part of the Constitution,
The right
Second
of the
Amendment,
people
more than
to keep and
Congress's
bear arms
powers.
shall not be infringed.
Yeah, why do you keep repeating that?
Because that's what it says.
Okay.
So
I'm asking you a question. Why do you respect the Second Amendment?
Because one
more
is good,
than
I respect
and the
all
other
of it.
one is being used for bad.
No, wait.
you just said that you
That's why.
shouldn't do that. You shouldn't interpose your subjective opinion before the framers' design. That's what you said.
So can we, without vote, change the Constitution?
No, you shouldn't be able to. No.
So when it says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, can we infringe upon the right to keep and bear arms without vote?
No.
Okay, what, I don't
It
understand.
needs to amend the Constitution. In the meantime, though, what you can do is you can say that for the same reason that, people who are schizophrenic can't own guns, you could actually say this is a condition that bans somebody.
I'm approaching this just from a logical platform, and this is why I think conservatives, liberals, libertarians, everybody, maybe not the anarcho-capitalists, are lying to themselves.
Why do you?
Nobody actually wants the Constitution. They just use it when it's convenient for their ends.
That's correct.
No, hang on. That's not true.
Yeah.
So
Yes, it is.
That is not true. The Second Amendment was never
We
understood.
had blasphemy laws in this country for hundreds of
Amen.
years.
Bring them back. Bring them
Second
back.
Amendment-
Blue laws, Sabbath laws. Let's go. Talk about the First Amendment. I'm ready for that one.
That's the point. My point.
The Second Amendment was never understood to mean that you can't put any restrictions on the ability of people to keep and bear arms. For example, ex-felons. It was always understood that the right to keep and bear arms does not extend to ex-felons.
Yes, and also, did you know that in the 1800s, it was commonplace for local sheriffs and big cities to confiscate the weapons of individuals entering those towns? The Constitution, as people believe it to exist, never existed. Never did.
Right. It's all
Maybe the Third Amendment.
So even when you think about like blasphemy laws, for instance, you know, like if somebody blasphemed Jesus Christ, you're in trouble. If somebody blasphemed, Muhammad 100 years ago, you're not in trouble. Why? Well, it's not equal weights and measures. No, it doesn't need to be equal weights and measures.
Now it's the other way around.
One God is true. That's correct. One God is true, and the other one is false. And it's the political will of the people who ultimately are determining that. So it's not. We have all these laws, and we have the Constitution to bind us and to restrain us from doing good.
Do you respect the Constitution?
I respect the Constitution insofar as it aligns with the immutable law of God and insofar as the law is used lawfully. The book of James says the law is good so long as it's being used lawfully. You want to use laws to ensure that more people are still murdered. I want to use laws to promote
Criminalize blasphemy.
Yeah, what?
To criminalize blasphemy.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Yes, I want to use
Who
laws
decides? Who
to
decides?
stop wickedness.
Who decides what's
and
blasphemous?
promote good. What?
Who decides what's blasphemy?
Guy with the gun.
One, the Lord Jesus Christ, the triune
not
God.
around to tell us.
Secondly, you can look to our heritage. You can look to our history. You can look to what the nation
Well, our
was in
heritage
its
says,
founding.
First Amendment, the very first line, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment
Correct.
of religion.
Congress. Let's get there. So First Amendment, let's make it even simpler. First word of the First Amendment. You're right. Congress cannot make a national church. So you cannot have a federal church over the whole country that is Episcopalian or Catholic or Baptist or whatever. But at the time that happened, you still had within the original colonies, 10 or 11 out of the 13 colonies had sanctioned churches. So technically, even with the First Amendment as it is on the books today, you could have state churches. Texas could be, Baptist, and Mississippi could be Presbyterian. You could have state churches. I'm not even saying that you should, but you could have state churches. What I would argue for at the national level is a pan-Protestant Christian nationalism. I think we should adopt a preamble.
That's a religion, isn't it?
What?
Isn't that a religion?
That's religion. Congress can't determine a religion. Congress cannot say at the national
The
level
14th
this
Amendment
is.
it incorporates the First Amendment to apply to the states, I'll say, and the Second Amendment also didn't used to apply to the state governments. Are you suggesting under your framework you would not want the Second
My
Amendment?
theocratic framework.
So under your theocratic, you called it a theocracy.
Yes,
Under your
of course.
theocracy.
Theocracy is wonderful.
Okay, got it. So this is what I mean.
God
So-
above the state. So separation of church and state is not the same as separation of Christ and state. There will be a God above the state. If there's no God above the state, then the state becomes God. So yes, I want Christ and state not severed. Church and state, that's different.
So we
as
can have some
institutions.
corrupt priests telling us what we're allowed to say and not.
Nope, that's an
Versus a
ecclesiocracy.
No,
That's a church-run state.
Corrupt,
I'm saying
whatever
a
you want to call it.
theocracy.
Whatever your corrupt ministers, your corrupt people.
No, but what you're saying is not what I'm saying.
Okay,
You're
that's what's
talking
going to
about-
happen.
you're
Though.
ta-
That's
no,
what's going to happen.
No, you're talking about
Yeah, it will.
priest
It will
running
happen.
the
It
state.
will happen.
That's a church-run state.
Hold on.
I'm saying a theocracy, not
Wait,
ecclesiocracy.
So this is it will happen. I agree with Pisco, but it'll happen in any system among any group of people for any reason.
Correct. So we have priests who are running things right now. And the priest, the high priestesses, have blue hair. They're transgender. They're lesbian. They abort 1 million babies every single year. We have sacraments. It's not whether but which. Right now we have sacraments, right? Our sacraments are that it's the blood of unborn children. Our sacraments are transgender, surgeries to minors. Every society has a God. Every society has an orthodoxy. And we have blasphemy laws, not necessarily on the books, but in terms of cultural power, every society of people has an orthodoxy. Anything that's deemed outside of that is going to be considered blasphemy. There are things that I could say right now, which I won't, but things that I could say right now that would be treated as blasphemy. I would ruin my life. I wouldn't be able to feed my kids. That's every society. Every society.
Would you criminalize apostasy and heresy?
Oh, no. Okay, so if somebody's not a Christian, right? This is not the way that our country was in the very beginning. It would not be mandated church attendance, right? The Sabbath, we're talking about Chick-fil-A, guys. It's not the end of the world. It would be okay.
Bro, when I can't get my grilled nuggies.
Yeah, it's frustrating. But you know what? If you just go to church all day, Tim, you would be okay. You know what I mean? You'd forget about it.
The libertarian, you have something to say
potlucks.
about this. I mean, why do you just say it's all, you put your hands up in the air?
I'm not a child.
What's that?
Because I'm not a child. Michael Malice.
Apostasy would not, just real quick, apostasy would not be criminalized.
Okay.
So think of it like this, the 10 Commandments. I think this is helpful. I'll say it quick and I'll let it go. Think of the first and the 10th commandment. All right, I'm Protestant, okay? So the Catholics are going to take, the 10th commandment of thou shalt not covet and bifurcate it into two. Don't covet stuff, and then don't covet the wife, and that's so they can get rid of the second commandment, which is do not make graven images, because the Catholics like their images. All right, so I'm a Protestant, so bear with me. First commandment is thou shalt have no other gods before me. Last commandment is do not covet. 10 commandments, but think of it as two headlines, two subcategories, tables of the law. Our duty toward God, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. And then the second is love your neighbor as yourself. The first 4 of the 10 commandments deal with our love for God. Have no other gods before me. Don't make any graven images. Don't take the Lord's name in vain. And remember the Sabbath. The next 6, second table of the law now, pertaining to our love for neighbor, is honor your father and mother. Don't murder. Don't commit adultery. Don't bear false witness, and don't covet. The 10th commandment, I don't want any police state enforcing the 10th commandment, because coveting is a sin, but biblically speaking, and all through the Old Testament and America's history, coveting was a sin, but it was never viewed as a crime, right? You don't want like a Tom Cruise Minority Report where they're trying to predict crimes and sins of the heart.
Well, I don't.
And neither do I.
I don't know. You support this deployment.
No, I don't. Let me finish. So coveting is a sin. It's not a crime. So it's like, so then when is this 10th commandment, one of the 10 commandments, when is it punished? It's punished when an individual doesn't check coveting at the level of the heart and it spills over into theft or to murder it's when it breaches. Now it's a crime. It's an outward action that is against the people and against the Lord. And so too with the first table of the law, look at the first commandment, have no other gods before me. So are we going to be, that's a sin, not a crime. Am I going to be punishing people for their idolatry in their heart? No. But if it spills over into action. So if a guy,
for example,
that's right.
Public prayers to Muhammad.
So if a guy apostatizes privately in his heart and stops attending church, that's one thing. But if that guy forms the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, is doing parades, mocking and blaspheming Jesus Christ with adulterous nuns in front of children, okay, now it's a crime.
Or publicly stating that Jesus is not divine. For example, if a Jewish person publicly states and rejects the divinity of Jesus Christ, that would be a public action that you could be sanctioned for.
There's a difference in somebody in free speech and somebody saying something publicly versus having prayer sirens 5 times a day in an American city, calls to prayer. That should be illegal. And church bells should be legal for 2 reasons. 1, church bells are pretty, sirens are not. 2nd, we're a Christian nation and we're not Islamic.
Well, I think church bells should be legal because it tells me what time it is.
Yeah, it's helpful.
I'm half kidding. But I want to answer your question. You were like, you're a libertarian, you put your hands up. I love telling this story, and I'll say it again, and I hope all the skateboarders here. We have a skate park here. It's called Boonies. We did our first event, Boonies Skate Night. First place won $3,000 for a game of skate. It's, I think it was about 12 minutes of work for one skater. It was a guarantee of $1,000. The winner getting 3. We're hoping if we get some sponsors, we're going to crank that up to $5,000 and ultimately $10,000 to win one game of skate. If I was unfamiliar, it's like playing horse in basketball. I go, do what I did. If you don't, you get a letter. If you get 5 letters, you lose.
You got to follow what the other guy does.
Here's the best thing. Before we did the event, a small channel, it's got 10,000 subscribers. We've sold a lot of skateboards. It's pretty good. And we've signed some professional athletes. We have a great team. And the community, which is not really skateboarders, whatever. It's a bunch of activists. They're lefty. They're very, very left. And they attacked us. They called us white supremacists. They insulted us. They threatened anybody who would dare come here to skate with us as you'll lose your sponsors. We'll make sure you never work again in the industry.
They threatened you for being a white supremacist?
They threatened anybody who would come skate here.
I feel like you're the most moderate person I've ever listened to. How do you get so much flack?
Because being a disaffected,
how I do.
I'm an apostate. I'm a liberal apostate. So here's the point I'm getting to. When you ask me about his worldview and whether I'd be opposed or angry. So we do the event, and they start attacking the people who have attended. But before we do the event, they're attacking the people who want to come. They're attacking athletes we've worked with. I've gotten messages from professional athletes saying things like, I wish I could come out there, but I would lose my job. My sponsors will kick me off. I can't do it.
That's crazy.
Then we offered $3,000 for one day for just a few minutes of work. Plus, we did something called tips for tricks, where if you landed tricks, we call it, we gave you $100 bills. Guess what they're all saying now? Can I please come? Because the only thing that actually mattered was the fear of force. And so I am not a child. Michael Malice is a much more learned man on this, but I agree with him. And he said, Tim, you're an anarchist. And I'm like, I understand what you're saying. I've referred to myself as a philosophical anarchist in understanding.
You're a libertarian. That's an anarchist.
But I'm not big on libertarian or anything like that. and I don't think it's, I would argue that I'm a philosophical anarchist who likes the American classical to traditional.
What the fuck does your skate park have to do with anything? I'm asking, like, why can't you just condemn his worldview there? I mean, the society he wants to create.
The point I'm making
is a theocratic one.
When they threaten the livelihoods of people, they bend the knee. When I countered and said, I will give you more money than they're offering you, their opinions changed.
Yes.
So when you say his worldview is bad, I say your worldview is bad too. And the only thing that dictates whether or not my rights will be infringed is who's pointing the gun at me.
You just said your worldview is bad too, so you disagree with his theocratic aspirations.
I disagree with both of you.
But why can't you just say, yeah, I disagree? I think that's stupid.
He mainly
Because I'm not
disagrees
concerned
with you, though. No, I'm just kidding.
He doesn't have a gun pointed at me. And the moment when he and all of his people point a gun at me and say, proclaim Jesus Lord, then I'm going to say,
just for the record, that's never been a thing.
right, but right. I'm not trying to
not a
accuse you of actually doing that. I'm saying if, I made a comment to Adam Conover about how he would never mock Muhammad in the UK. And we actually got some Islamic protesters at like one of our events. I guess they were mad because I had said that. I'm going to tell them they're wrong and I can say whatever I want. Don't play, right? But there's a reality. As you already pointed out, there are things you can say that you believe that will destroy your life.
Absolutely.
Because there is a threat of force against you to destroy your access to resources. So when you're like, his worldview is bad, I'm like, Barack Obama's worldview is bad. He blew up fucking kids, okay? We will call out the bad things when we don't agree with them, but there's a reality to the functions of politics in this country. The Second Amendment never applied until 2010. And so all the gun rights advocates who are like, I have a right to do this, you didn't. Heller, it was DC versus Heller that finally determined an individual right to keep bear arms. And it wasn't until McDonald v. Chicago where it actually applied to the whole country.
Right.
So the argument that we in this country since 1789 had a right to keep and bear arms, not correct. Blasphemy laws existed. No. You were illegally searched and seized all the time. We have these amendments, but
we're looking for the more perfect union. Yeah, there are times in our history where we have not been true to our
to have the more perfect union. We need the more perfect people.
The 9th and 10th
we don't have the people right now.
The 9th and 10th Amendment may not have, don't even need to exist.
All I'm trying to say is just because there have been times, and I agree with you, especially on the First Amendment stuff, where we have not lived up to our constitutional ideals.
We never have.
We've never perfectly done so. You're correct.
We currently have laws on the books that Congress has made respecting establishments of speech and religion.
I think that that's arguable. Yeah, I think that some of them. Yeah, I think that we probably disagree on some of that.
If we're going to read the letter of the law pertaining to free speech, the idea that the government can make it illegal to incite violates the First Amendment.
No, because when they were doing the freedom of speech as understood by the framers didn't include defamation.
You're making an opinion argument.
Do you think that the First Amendment includes child pornography?
Of course not. The point is, if we read it to the letter of law, the idea that you can say anything.
But that's not what the First Amendment ever understood.
Like the Constitution is never. When the founding fathers said First Amendment, you'd walk outside and blaspheme, they'd arrest you. They didn't believe in your right to express your opinions.
That's right.
So one of the first things that the Adams administration did, or I don't know if the first thing, but one of the things that it did was pass the sedition laws, which basically made it a crime to insult the president or criticize the president. So it's crazy. So
we agree.
I'm not saying
they never believed that.
But that value, that doesn't mean that we should abandon the value. That doesn't mean that we should not try to be perfect.
The point is, when you're arguing more perfect, you're saying where I feel we should go morally.
No. Where I think that we should more approximate that ideal.
Can I ask you real quick about federalizing the National Guard?
Yep.
So I thought about this on the way over here. I think it was 1957, and I believe it was Eisenhower, that he actually federalized the National Guard and sent them into Little Rock, Arkansas during desegregation. And so there was an all-white school there, and the governor of Arkansas, this is a classic Arkansas move right here, but was saying, no, we're not going to desegregate. We're going to keep our all-white school. And the National Guard was federalized by Eisenhower to bring in and help march in with guns and all those things, the black students into the school to segregate that school. I'm just curious, do you feel like that was a just use of the National Guard?
So I'm not sure what the then existing statutes were for authorization of the National Guard for the federal, if they were the same as they are now. But to answer your question, and I think one of those situations, it was the U.S. Marshals, and I'm not sure, that is civilian law enforcement. But in the main,
no, this was National Guard.
There was a potential for a nullification crisis there, where you have the state. It's not like the state governor in that situation was actively obstructing, Brown versus Board and the federal laws in the books with respect to equal protection. So in those situations, I can imagine being okay with it. I would need to examine the legal context and the facts to understand if it makes sense under the law.
Do you think equal protection applies to you have to go to the same school?
I don't know that was so. It means you can't racially discriminate on the basis of
right. It was court ruling, Supreme Court ruling, and because of that, now they're saying, well, that we have a different set of rules. And, when the governor and local authorities did not adhere to that, then you had the National Guard coming in and enforcing it. Do you think, here's my question, take the legality out of it, and I know you don't like that, you've been pretty clear about, but do you think that was good? Do you think it was morally good?
Good to integrate schools? Yes.
No, and being more particular. Okay. Do you think it was morally good to go against the local governing authorities to force the integration of schools?
I do.
Okay, but why not? So if you're saying it's a moral, universal good,
I didn't say. I don't know what you mean by universal good.
Okay, it was a moral good at the time to make sure that different races of students are in the same school together. How come you don't want to save black people's lives?
Yes.
How come that's not a moral good?
Again, you're not going to like this, but when I say something is good, right? I don't know if you're grounding it out in some kind of view on objective morality.
Yes, of course.
Views on God, yeah. And I don't know if you're like a presuppositionalist or one of these type of people who say logic doesn't make sense if there's no God or some shit like that. I really don't want to. I mean, we can if you want to get into the presupposition.
No, we don't have to get into it.
In general,
real quick,
my intuition
logic doesn't make sense if there is no God. So I will say that,
so
but we don't have to get into it.
Okay, I don't even know what that statement means, to be honest with you. My intuition about whether something is good or not depends on the facts, right? And so if we are living in a society in which I say, in general, I think it's good to not break the law and to follow the law and make sure the law is enforced, because in general, I think overall this constitutional system and our historical tradition brings about good outcomes. I think that you can't be divorced from that context and say, in isolation,
what brings
is the integration bad or good?
In this example, what's bringing about good outcomes?
So following the Equal Protection Clause, which was passed specifically to prevent individuals from being subordinated, including from private discrimination, but especially from public discrimination, that in that context, following that law that was enacted by the people, ratified by the people, that is good. We should, if we believe, although it seems like you don't believe in a republic form of government, do you?
No, I think a republic form of government, this is my opinion. I think a constitutional republic would be, in my assessment, I've said this publicly many times, the ideal form of government. However, forms of governments have to be suited for the people of that time. We don't have the people, right? A moral and upstanding, religious people. The Constitution is wholly fit for none other. We don't have those people. So I would say we currently have degenerates. And with degenerates, men must be governed, to quote Master and Commander.
I will say I think the mere notion that National Guard is considered in any context shows that society is breaking down.
Yes.
There was Wade Stotts had a really great video. Is that his name, Wade Stotts?
Yes. Yeah, Wade Stotts.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah. He had a video where he basically talked about how the point at which you need to write down your Constitution to enforce it is when you're cooked.
What are you talking about?
No. This is Joseph de Maistre's principle, right? All constitutions are preceded by the morality and the ideas
right.
written in the hearts and minds of the men that wrote them. And so over generations, because the Constitution, you outsource the enforcement of morality to the document itself, and so the people to which the Constitution applies no longer believe in the ethic of the Constitution, and so they just start squabbling about how they can circumnavigate the statutes.
That's
right. So should we follow it? I mean,
let me just kind of explain what this means.
Yeah.
The question asked is, what does Constitution refer to? What the Constitution before the United States typically it was unwritten. So the UK, I believe you have an unwritten Constitution. Is that how you guys describe it?
Yes.
Meaning that there are general ideas of what should or should not be. The founding fathers were like, we'll have an unwritten Constitution too. And then there was the debate over, no, hold on a minute, because you're going to violate our rights because we don't agree. The issue was that the states were each individual and sovereign.
So I never want to hear about
here's
Russia
the point.
I never want to hear about search warrants
I
and
can
shit
finish.
like that from you guys.
The point is, philosophically, the argument is, when you get to a point where you need to deploy a federalized police force because the views of how the country is supposed to be running is different, i.e., Donald Trump says no illegal immigration. Democrats say yes, illegal immigration.
Right.
Democrats say you can't enforce this law in our state. We'll object it. And Donald Trump says I can. And then the interpretation of the Constitution as written is completely different among these two groups.
So what would it take for you to
Joe Biden removing the razor wire, against Abbott or things like that? Like it's just the opposite.
Let's not get into that, but there are reasons for that as well, and it has to do with the fact that you have to follow the law in terms of the Immigration Nationality Act. You have to process these people, you have to apprehend them, and you have to put them to immigration proceedings.
The point you need
past
to,
that and just,
right. So let me make this point.
What would it take for you to say to Trump, this is bad, that your deployment in Chicago is bad? What would it take? What kind of thing would he have to do with the National Guard in Chicago for you to...
That's an open-ended question with a million outcomes.
Yeah. So if it's not enough for him to break the law, and
a National Guardsman is caught jacking off on the corner of 47th.
No, but that's the individual guard. I'm just saying the deployment itself.
A battalion caught jacking off.
The deployment itself.
Altogether.
Trump could say,
like, oh my God, Trump, what's going on? It's bad.
Trump could say, I want to deploy the Marines in every major city in this country to stop crime, and you would be in support of that, wouldn't you?
What is the...
Not necessarily. I mean, it's kind of a vague generality. I don't understand.
It's not vague at all. I'm giving you something concrete. The same kind of deployments in L.A.
Listen. Let's not have kindergarten questions.
It's not kindergarten at all. I mean,
it certainly is.
There's no limiting principle here. You're going to.
If there were mass riots across the country in every major city, and Trump said the local police have failed to enforce this, I'm deploying the military, I'd say, okay.
Yeah.
No, not you yourself said this isn't some punctuated crime wave in Chicago. You said that at the start, right?
What? I didn't say punctuated.
No. What I mean to say, you said we're not seeing some massive crime wave in Chicago that we've never seen before. You said that, right?
No.
What did you say at the beginning then when you were saying that Chicago, it's not like the apocalypse in Chicago?
I was saying that 1,000 years ago when you lived in the woods, a bear would come and eat your wife.
That's what you were saying?
Yes.
You weren't saying that Chicago had
I'm saying that
society,
livable,
that it's
I'm saying that it is obvious to anyone who can read a history book that life is better today than it was 1,000 years ago. That doesn't mean we should tolerate 800 deaths per year.
So as they currently are, as the states and cities currently are,
we want to be a more perfect union.
As they currently are, you would not have a problem with Trump deploying the Marines, the military, the National Guard, all over for the purpose of lowering the crime rate.
In what circumstance?
All across the country, right?
In what circumstance? Where?
So
for the purpose
I just told
of
you.
lowering crime?
Didn't I just tell you? All over the country for the purpose of lowering crime.
You're asking me.
Deploying the military.
You're asking me if I would be okay with total federalization of law enforcement across the country.
And putting the military, Marines.
Yeah, the answer is no. I'm not okay with that.
Why not?
I've literally argued against the federalization of police forces.
Why not? Why would you be against that?
Federalization. So we have sovereign jurisdictions. The purpose of a republic is that where you grew up in rural Utah, you have different circumstances than someone who lives in D.C. Mm-hmm. The problem is Democrats tend to operate in the inverse, such as West Virginia, in the rural parts of West Virginia. The Democrats are trying to ban federally the right to transfer firearms for private sales.
Can you stick to the issue? Why would you be against it? Yeah,
so,
different states have different.
I love how when I'm answering your question, you don't like the answer. But you change the subject.
You're monologuing about yes, there are differences between states and sovereign jurisdictions.
So I said I would not be okay with the total federalization of policing. You then asked me why, and I said, and let me finish now, because Jim Bob and Ricky Joe, who live 2 hours from each other in the mountains of West Virginia, are living in completely different circumstances to Washington, D.C. So the federalization of police force under the Democrat laws of gun control infringes upon the rights of two guys who live in the boonies who have to
in the sovereign interest of West Virginia, doesn't it? In the sovereign interest of these states. These states are separate sovereigns. And you're saying that you respect...
The point.
Yeah, you respect the sovereignty there. Why is
so the total federalization of policing is bad. Yes, agreed.
But so would be not just federalization of their police force, but deploying the Marines Marines and the Army on the streets of every single state, you would be against that too.
The
That would
universal mass federalization of law enforcement in this country is a bad thing when done without any justifiable reason. Agreed.
Okay,
what's your point?
Okay, but then the current rationale.
You're saying sending 80 National Guard into Chicago, just Chicago, because of the high rate of death is very different from the total federalization of all law enforcement.
But what I'm saying here is
Trump has the legal authority to do it, and that we have the Insurrection Act of 1807 and 1870.
Why does it matter that he has?
I'm sorry.
Why does it matter that he has legal authority to do it? I don't think he does.
You made that point, and I'm agreeing with you.
That he doesn't.
No. That there are legal authorities by which Trump can do this, and even in that circumstance, I don't think it's universally good.
Oh, just because I say that there's
You're like,
some circumstances in which it would be okay to federalize the National Guard doesn't mean that I said that it was legal in this context.
why are you like? Let me ask you a question about your Christian nationalism.
Yeah.
So, if like a group of priests went around with machetes mercilessly murdering people all across the country all the time, you'd be in favor of that?
Dude.
No.
Well, of course not.
No.
No one argued in favor of what you're asking.
So I did not say, would you be in favor of the National Guard, like shooting people? I didn't say, would you be in favor of
I was making a point about an extreme position.
It's not extreme at all. So
for the
Trump
purpose
himself,
of illustrating, no one here has argued for the total nationalization
it's crazy, man.
of
So
policing.
I used to be a bartender, and I would talk to these military, and we were in a military type town, and every time I would talk to these vets and these former and sometimes active service people, they would say the one thing that we're taught all the time: you don't deploy at home. We don't have standing armies at home. And everyone I talked to would say, we're very proud of that tradition. We don't interfere in domestic civilian affairs.
Thank you for the anecdote. How would you like to hear my anecdote
all I'm trying to say is you guys think that it's like no big deal. It's no big deal to deploy the National Guard.
It is a big deal. It is a big deal. And what we have happening in major cities in America right now with the crime rate is a big deal. It merits it.
And is violating the law a big deal?
Can I ask a question on that, just to understand? Is the reason you're against it because it violates the law?
That's one of the reasons. Yeah.
Okay. So, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to try and accurately characterize your position. The law, you see it as a neutral arbiter that can. Okay, you're shaking your head.
No, I don't know what you mean by neutral arbiter.
As in, it's a set of rules that keeps the peace, that sits atop different competing groups' conceptions of the good.
I largely think that characterization is okay.
Okay, yeah. I'm literally not trying to strawman you. The law itself, though, would you not agree, rests on a set of culturally particular givens?
No doubt.
Okay, right. If those circumstances have changed, would it not require a change in the law or a change in the application of law to restore those circumstances?
Potentially. I think that sometimes cultural differences, changed attitudes, changed ethical outlooks justify changes in the law.
Okay, so the well-regulation of a militia, the allowance of each state to govern itself, thinking its police force would act in the interests of its own citizens with different geographical particularities. That was fine for a settlement for a few hundred years. You had problems, of course. You had the Civil War, etc. Sure. You had the confiscation of firearms, as Tim said. But broadly, you could return to source. Do you not see in certain places like Chicago, like LA, where civilization has just broken down into violence, that a more forceful application of the law would be temporarily necessary in order to restore order? A bit like in the Roman Republic when you had a Caesar figure like Cincinnatus step in for a little while and then renounce that power.
That guy was based.
He's very good.
Yeah. So basically you're asking me, would I be in favor of legal changes to the law to make this?
A temporary centralization of power to then recreate the conditions where self-governance is possible again.
The answer is no. I don't think that the military is suited for regular civilian deployments because I think that they're essentially, they have a lot of different interests. I think they're very honorable, but they're murder machines. They're trained to be killers.
That's not correct.
Hang on.
That's
They're about combat infantry.
People like regulars in the military, they're trained to kill. They're not trained in the same way that we train our civilian law enforcement.
A dude I knew who did IT work for the military wasn't a killer.
No, you know what I'm talking
He was
about.
physically fit. Let's be real. They do PT.
No, I understand the
They're
point
being
he's
trained. They are being trained for combat.
Yeah, they're
scenarios.
trained for
They're
force.
They're being trained to.
And
they're
this
not
is a
being trained-
situation where force
No,
is
but-
required. That doesn't mean that they're unhinged or.
I'm not saying no. I'm literally. I just want to make sure.
I got to clarify this. What percentage of the military do you think are actually combat infantry?
I'm not sure. It doesn't matter because the people who are being deployed are combat infantry right now. They're being deployed
That's fair. They're not going to deploy the IT guy on the street corner, right?
Agreed.
Okay, so let's just clarify when you're like the army itself is.
The people who are being deployed, the regulars who are being deployed right now.
They're combat.
They're combat people. I'm not saying that they're mindless machines. I'm not saying that they're, but they have.
You said they're murder. Did you say murder machines?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Listen, I'm not saying they're.
They have
killing machines.
Listen.
Still would have been wrong. You went straight for murder machines.
They have greater trigger discipline than your average police officer.
I am not telling you that there's anything wrong with that, right?
Especially
I
female
want,
police
like
officers.
Kamala Harris said, I want our military to be the most lethal fighting force. Don't you?
You like Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with you.
Can we not? She's way better than Trump. Way better than Trump. Way better than Trump. Way better
Okay,
than
I'm
Trump.
sorry,
He's been on the show multiple times.
The
The
lost hour, I've just disregarded
love him, we
everything
love
you
him.
said.
Wait.
I
resident
can't
liberal.
accuse you of being biased. I mean, that's impressive.
Can you just address it? Right. So you want, don't you, your combat infantry to be
Yes,
murder machines,
trained,
killing machines.
No,
Come on,
not don't say murder.
Okay.
Yes,
I
I
You got
want them
triggered
to
by
be-
the word murder. You know what I'm
Well,
talking
because it's
about.
not murder.
triggered.
It's
All right,
not
get
murder. You're
triggered.
Mr. Technical
This is
over here,
crazy.
using the right words.
me
You know what I'm
answer-
talking about?
I'm gonna answer-
Killing
I'm-
machines. Do I want them
gonna-
to be highly trained and lethal?
Lethal. Yes.
Yes.
That's what I'm talking. You understood what I was talking about.
I'm
But
gonna
you
answer.
understood what I was
guys.
talking about.
Okay. Let's answer the point.
Okay, yeah.
Answer the question.
They're not specialized
City-
for civilian law enforcement.
In New York City, do you know how? Do you remember when when the cops shot 7 random people?
No, I don't know.
All right, let me tell you this. Let me
What are
tell
you talking about? It's always some random fucking story with you.
you too. You were like, I met some guy who told me that the military should.
I'm trying to appeal the way that you do.
So in New York, a guy went to, I think it was the Empire State Building, and shot and killed people in his office. He disgruntled.
Oh yes, I do remember that actually.
He walked out, and the NYPD ran up to stop him, and they fired, missed him, and hit 7 random people.
They hit 7 random people.
7 random people. I believe that number was 7.
Wow.
The argument that was presented, this was a New York talking point, it was a big concern that needed to be rectified, was that the cost of the lawsuits for improper discharge and injury was less than the cost of training the NYPD. So it was actually, it's your basic cost risk analysis, right? Remember that scene from Fight Club?
Capitalism for the win, huh?
It is. Remember the scene from Fight Club where Edward Norton's character is on the plane and he says, if a car is defective, and it crashes and kills the people inside, and the company knows the cost of the lawsuit will be less than the cost of a recall, we don't recall. That's what happened in New York. They said, how come these cops couldn't shoot? And they said, well, to be honest, comprehensive firearm training is more expensive than the lawsuits we have to pay out when they shoot innocent people.
Who said that?
This was the basic.
Did anyone say that?
Yes, but I want to be careful here because I don't want to ascribe something to somebody who's going to sue me later for obvious reasons. The general conversation among politicians was the NYPD, or I should say the debate politically in the cultural space was the NYPD isn't doing these trainings because it's more expensive than paying lawsuits. They're not going to publicly admit it at the highest levels, but that was the internal, like, everybody kind of knows it's $50 million a year in lawsuits versus $100 million for training. So what we end up seeing is, I will say this, I would rather have a military trained individual who later becomes a cop than a short, fat guy with no training.
No, that's not what we're talking about. Yeah, if a military person.
When you say they're killing machines or murder machines,
You know what I'm talking about, dude. You
Okay,
guys are soying
let me finish
out.
my point.
You've been
Let me
Mr.
finish.
Technical this whole
okay,
time.
I'm gonna finish my point. A former military. I'm not talking about military because I'm trying to make the point. Former military police who have military and police training
Great.
are safer and better at their jobs than somebody who just grew up in the area and got limited police training.
Yeah.
Okay.
Therefore, the point is there's more discipline and better training among military personnel than local police.
Do you?
Your argument misses that point.
Okay. Bring up the Declaration of Independence. Can you do this? Can you bring up the
Sure.
Declaration of Independence? I would love for you to do that. But
I don't know what that
All
is.
men are created equal.
no, I'm not going to
What
put
does that
that.
have to do with the
Asterix, freeborn, white
We're
Christian
talking about the
Englishman.
policy.
That is the
Talking about the
context.
policy. I did not say that former military people
That
should
is
not
true
be
because they didn't mean
cops.
black people.
No, people say, oh, they weren't living up to their ideals. That was actually the specific application of their ideal at the time.
We disagree with it now, for sure.
Scroll down real quick. Down, until they listen him out. He is kept among us in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. One of the main complaints, central theses of the founding generation was that having standing armies mixed in with civilian enforcement is dangerous.
Without consent.
You cited, didn't you?
I consent to Trump.
Rome. Okay. You cited Rome. One of the big dangers and why standing armies might be bad and deleterious to domestic liberty is that someone might use that domestic military to usurp our Republican form of government. And so these are genuine policy reasons why we don't want to have standing armies.
Yeah, we don't want the standing
force.
army to usurp our Republican form of government. The problem that we have right now is that the people, our citizens themselves, and a bunch of people who aren't citizens have usurped that Republican form of government. So like, this is like going into a house that's on fire with, or a house that's flooded with a fire extinguisher. Right, it's the wrong solution. That you have to look at the context. When we had the founders, they're looking at England, and there is religious persecution. Right, the king at the time was forcing ministers to read from the Sports Almanac on the Lord's Day in their church service, which violated their consciences because you got a bunch of Protestant Puritans, those kinds of things. You had tyranny, you had civil tyranny, you had ecclesiastical tyranny, and so they're coming from that, and they're coming from that with people who are homogenous. People who have the same convictions, they have the same ethnic background, and so in that context,
so
they're
this
saying
doesn't apply
our
anymore.
fear. Listen, they're saying our fear is government overreach, and even with the First Amendment, our fear is religious overreach. When the First Amendment was not to think that the First Amendment was written, they're like, we're really hoping one day that this will protect Muslims.
Well,
that's insane.
I just want to say one. I consent. As a Chicago native. And I know I don't speak for literally everyone in Chicago. I can tell you that my friends and my homies, they work here. They're from my neighborhood.
The majority don't, though.
That's not correct.
You think the majority in D.C. don't?
The majority of who?
So
majority of the people.
My neighborhood in Chicago.
What people?
People of Chicago, people of D.C.
My Democrat neighborhood in Chicago is now a Trump-supporting red neighborhood. And
who asked? Okay.
So I'm making this point. So I am saying this. For my neighborhood, where we do agree and did vote for Trump, we consent to Trump deploying to that neighborhood specifically. And I do not believe it's fair that Pritzker, the governor, infringe upon our rights as a community to request federal assistance only in our neighborhood.
Well, the city officials also don't want it.
My neighborhood does. Does my neighborhood have a right to say, please help us?
No.
No?
They have a vote. They have a say in whatever count. Listen, I don't know how the Chicago city government is run. You probably know more than I do. But you have representation, and overwhelmingly the city of Chicago, the city of LA, the city of DC, they don't want this deployment there.
Let me ask you. If Illinois, as a jurisdiction, says, do not deploy, we refuse, Trump should not do it.
Okay.
Right? You agree? You would agree with that?
Well,
the state's saying, don't come here, you don't have a right.
In this specific context, yes.
At what point do individuals lose the right, lose their rights to a superior form of government?
Well, I don't know. Are we entertaining hypotheticals at this point? Because you seem pretty resistant to it earlier.
It's not. So my point is quite literally, my neighborhood turned red and voted for Trump. This was in 2012. It was blue, Democrat voting. And then in 2016, it was blue. In 2020, it was a little red. And in 2024, it turned red and voted for Trump. Mm-hmm. Why should this particular isolated community that has a shared worldview, when they say, we actually would like the National Guard to come here to stop the violence, why should the city of Chicago, who don't live there and don't agree, be able to enforce their will and allow the crime to continue?
Because the overall levels of sovereignty are like the municipal, the state, and the federal.
Tyranny is okay in some degrees.
I don't know what you mean by tyranny. You have representation.
So
in that local district, that local council, and all.
Let's try this. Okay, let's forget all of the country and isolate only the borders of Chicago.
Okay.
There is one neighborhood. They have an alderman. That's what the local politicians are called. Sure. It has specific boundaries. And in this jurisdiction, they say crime has gotten out of hand. Our government has abandoned us and we need help. But the city of Chicago says you're not going to get it and we will keep anyone who tries from coming to your neighbor to save you. Is that tyranny?
Because the overall sovereign is the city of Chicago in that case. That's the sovereign.
So people should suffer if the sovereign determines it.
Well, yeah, but your voice is not forgotten in that context because that alderman is representing his constituencies. He just doesn't command a majority in the city. The city is the sovereign. And
but we're not asking for deployment to the rest of the city.
Basically, everything that you do, Tim, is you're basically doing this kind of continuum fallacy thing.
Stop being so obtuse.
Where does a puddle become a lake? Come on,
the King of England.
So the city of Chicago.
You're pretending to be stupid intentionally.
The city of Chicago is the sovereign.
You're pretending to be stupid intentionally when I'm literally taking your argument and applying it to Chicago, and you refuse to accept it because you know you're wrong.
No, I'm not wrong.
Let me say it again.
I'm not wrong.
When you cite the King of England as violating the rights of the colonies because the colonies is a jurisdiction under the crown, you say, we have the right to oppose the king. When I say a single neighborhood in Chicago says no to the mayor, you say the mayor can tell them what they can or can't do because they don't have the right.
If you go back to the Declaration of Independence, what was the other big issue with the system in the colonies is they didn't have representation. They didn't have representation in the parliament. They didn't have any say whatsoever. That's not the same in the situation that you presented, where you have local governance, and you have local governance in, right next to you. It's not like you're across an ocean.
My neighborhood does not have representation at the city.
Let me finish.
At the state
you
level.
do. You fucking do. Obviously, you do.
No.
What you're saying, the alderman doesn't have any say whatsoever
At the state level.
Okay, at the state level,
there is an over-encompassing jurisdiction that engulfs my neighborhood.
That's how we've set up our system. Our system is, and
that's how the crown set up theirs.
Hang on a second. So pick and
choose.
We recognize.
You just want you want to exercise power over people.
You're saying it's all arbitrary. So the state lines are arbitrary.
I'm saying when the people vote, the people have the right to choose.
So why do you care
how they
about?
live.
So what do you care about state sovereignty when you're talking about your big issue with federalization of all police force? If you're taking this ultimately elastic approach,
which is completely aligned with exactly what I just said.
No, it's not at all aligned because
people have a right to self-governance, be it a small neighborhood, a city, state, or otherwise, and no one should be able to come to a single person and force them to drop to their knees to proselytize for Muhammad.
Do you honestly think that if one person in Chicago says, "I consent," that the government should have the right to deploy? Okay, so what are you talking about?
If you're stupid,
wait, no. So then, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the polities and the sovereignties that we have established in our current system, which are the state government. The state is the true sovereign in that sense, and they've allocated some authority to the city of Chicago. They have not consented. That's what I'm saying.
If a body of people in a specific jurisdiction vote for how they should live within certain respects of obvious things like don't murder, right? We should say we respect the wishes of this community.
Okay.
Should people be allowed in their communities to vote for how they want to run their local
generally,
community?
yes.
So this one small 3 square mile area says, we don't want to impose National Guard on any of you. We don't want them to go to your communities. We would like them to come here. The outside authority says, no, we won't allow you to do that.
So are you going to say that everywhere that they say we don't want them, that Trump can't go?
Say that one more time.
Are you going to say, therefore, if what you're saying is what you think should happen, that is that one alderman should be able to speak for his district or whatever the polity is, whatever the group is there, that everywhere where they don't provide that permission, Trump should be barred from going?
It's not a proper inversion.
Okay.
So the existence of law enforcement is not the same as the non-existence of law enforcement. So the issue would be like this. You can't vote to commit crimes against your neighbors. Hence the point I made. The community says, we will not impose this on you. We're not going to vote for you so that we can say in our community, we're going to send people to your neighborhood to do something to you. That means if your community has crime going on, which is negatively impacting outside communities, we can go and stop that. Because you are, so I'll put
Even
this
if the mayor of Chicago, who represents all Chicagoans, correct?
Even if he what?
Even if he says no. The mayor of Chicago represents all Chicagoans.
He doesn't.
Why not?
Because some people didn't vote for him.
Hang on. Just because they didn't vote for him doesn't mean it doesn't represent them.
Well, okay.
I didn't vote for Trump. Trump represents me in the federal system.
In the legal context.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. I thought you were saying in the moral views of the people voting.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm saying if the mayor of Chicago, the elected official of Chicago, says we don't want you here, should Trump respect that?
No.
Okay, but we should respect the alderman. Help me out there.
Right. Okay. So let's try this. You've got a 3 square mile area. Mm-hmm. The people there are suffering under violence, drugs, or otherwise. They all vote in majority and say, we need help. We don't want to infringe on anybody's communities, so we are not going to ask any National Guard, nor do they have the authority to do so. They say, Mayor, can you please send us help? The mayor says no. And they say, okay, well, we have to do something about that. They form neighborhood watches. What does the city do? It goes and arrests those people and criminally charge. I'm not kidding, this actually happens. They try to put up signs saying neighborhood watch. And then what ends up happening is you're guilty of a criminal conspiracy and people got criminally charged for doing so. So when the mayor is violating the rights of the people who are not trying to infringe on anybody else to stop crimes, I believe it is appropriate for that community to be able to say, yeah, Trump, we consent to sending a National Guard, and Trump has the authority to say there's an emergency here and there's crimes happening.
So let's talk about and sovereignty matter until they don't for you.
So here's the inverse. Yeah. If there is a 3 square mile radius where people from that community are going outside of it and shooting and killing people and stealing from them, I believe then it's appropriate for Trump to say, I don't care what you want. You're committing crimes against people, so we're sending in National Guard whether you want us to or not.
And to enforce immigration law as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so you don't have a problem with the military enforcing civilian law. That's right?
In some circumstances, yes, in some, no.
So in the immigration context, you're totally fine with, let's say...
Totally, no, that's absolutism.
Hang on. So you are fine in the current context with active duty Marines, as was done in L.A., being deployed, and then in Chicago, let's say, Marines...
When they're dropping cinder blocks on people and the local law enforcement won't
Wait.
Let me finish the question. Marines enforcing and executing an immigration search warrant. Would you be in favor of that?
Did they find child slaves?
I asked you a question.
Did they find child slaves?
Whether they did or not, it doesn't have any bearing on the question.
It certainly does.
Why?
Because we're not talking about absolutes. There are circumstances involved. If the argument is the Marines can randomly show up and they're like, we're just going to do it anyway, I'd say, well, hold on.
No.
When the U.S. government says we have evidence showing that there's child slave labor going on in marijuana farms, I say yes, do it.
Tim, what I'm proposing
the answer is yes.
Hegseth says Marines go enforce immigration law in the country. You're cool with that? Generally, he doesn't say, "Oh, because there's child sex slavery." He just says we are executing on our authority under the U.S. Constitution, and we're saying Marines go enforce our immigration law.
Will it remove criminal illegals from the country?
Well, hold on.
We have to get to
it. Let's try and advance this from fifth grade debate to.
Wait, why don't you just answer the question?
I'm trying to, but So when you ask something that didn't happen for the purpose of setting up a precept that doesn't apply.
The military did help enforce immigration law.
Why did they do it?
Because Trump asked them to.
Why did he ask them to do it?
Because he wanted them to. I don't know. You have to ask Trump.
Right. So that's the fifth grade level.
Right.
When you go to college, you find out that in their cabinet meetings, they were like, there are child slaves being held on pot farms. We got to put a stop to it.
It wasn't just there. It was internal.
Okay. So when you come to me and say, let me ask you this question. Should a...
Wait, no, you never answered my question.
The answer is...
Yes,
when
military
applicable.
And when applicable is only when there's an intersection with child sex labor or in general. Because
there's a lot of circumstances in which it's good the military stops evil.
But these requests. DHS says we want these ride-alongs. We want DHS to come with us everywhere we go to help us execute these warrants for, and not just people.
How it happened. See, this is the problem.
God. Whether it happened or not, I'm asking you whether you'd be okay with it.
I don't know how many times you need me to say that the absolute federalization of law enforcement is a bad thing.
That's what I'm talking about. It's limited. The scope I'm talking about here is immigration enforcement.
You're saying should the federal government enforce local law without reason?
Should the federal government use the military to enforce immigration law in the interior of the country? That's
sometimes.
What I'm asking. In the context
sometimes.
For executing search warrants.
Sometimes yes.
All right.
Sometimes yes.
I think that there's a strong presumption against that kind of internal domestic law enforcement by
the answer is always sometimes.
Yes.
So this is what you have not done thus far in this discussion, and I'm just honestly curious. What's your solution?
For what?
A bunch of murder in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't take that to be the proposition of what we're here to talk about, but
I'll answer for him.
I'll ask him. I think we should. I think we should fund our law enforcement. I think that we should have, when appropriate, use the FBI and other federal resources. I mean, to help the city of Chicago.
Didn't work.
Hang on a second. So, just to be clear, just because something doesn't work doesn't mean that we should apply the military solution. That doesn't follow, right? Just because
you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, despite
if it doesn't work,
and
you
also
have to
crime
do
is
something that works.
Crime is down.
And find a solution.
You said yourself, crime is down overall in the country. I mean, Trump took credit in DC.
So let's do two things.
In DC, Trump was taking credit for massive crime coming down in May of this year.
You know what I'm going to do?
That's great.
You know what I want to do?
Chicago is still a hellhole.
You know what I want to do? I want to juxtapose your arguments over Nick Fuentes's, because you guys agree.
On what?
The crime is down in Chicago. Yeah, they bulldozed the black neighborhood.
Would you be in favor of bulldozing the black neighborhood?
Fuck no.
Would you?
But that's what the Democrats did.
Okay, but
over and over again.
Why are you suggesting that I'm in favor of that? I'm like fucking abundance build. I think that we should build more housing.
So when we're talking about finding alternatives to what
people who live in the city.
Okay, you said crime is down, and I'm like, yeah, after Democrats bulldozed the black neighborhood.
No, I mean you're going to characterize the decrease in crime that's been experienced across the country. Really, I mean, crime has been going down.
Well, that's also to do with collection of statistics, as we've seen recently.
You're doubting the statistics. You're doubting FBI statistics.
No.
Because they have distorted them for the last few years.
One of my favorite.
Trump takes credit for
one of my favorite websites.
Not that one. Not when Trump takes credit.
Are you guys familiar? Are you guys familiar with the website Spurious Correlations?
No.
No, unfortunately
I'm
not.
not familiar with it.
Let me see if I can pull this one up.
Oh, is this like,
So you
like
just
the release
think
of Nicolas
so
Cage
you do
movies?
have a
Here we
solution.
go. Wait,
You're
wait,
saying
wait,
it
hold on.
locally should be solved
go.
by funding police
We should
more.
fund police more. We should.
Look at this.
We should.
Yeah.
What's that?
The number of movies Elijah Wood appeared in versus the number of orderlies in Oklahoma, and there is a direct correlation. I think Elijah Wood needs to be in more movies because we're running out of orderlies.
Where is the problem that I'm like where you think that I'm doing correlation causation?
So when we talk about why crime is down, do you know why crime is down?
I mean, I have some guess and intuitions.
reasons
I'm
matter.
not okay. So I expect that has something to do with overall,
Population decline.
population's not declining in this country.
Population is declining in this country.
No, the growth rate is decreasing, but our population has grown. Over
Now
the-
this
over
is.
this
I
last
think
20,
this is
30
going to be the
years.
first year that we actually
This year,
decline because we
because of
stopped
immigration
immigration.
stuff.
Right.
And the average age of immigrants is,
I'm not sure.
so they're adults in their 20s. And crime in Chicago is typically black teenagers, not only black teenagers. That's the point I'm trying to make. When we're talking about population decline, once again,
Tim, the population was not declining at the time.
Okay,
that
we got
the
it. We're
crime was
going to
going
go
Because
there
of
again.
immigration.
Hold
The
on.
population's
Okay.
been- No,
We're going to go there
not
again.
just
We're going to go
immigration.
there again. You can't look at the overall population and say population hasn't changed. Hold on. Demographics did. The age of the average person is higher,
Yeah.
right? Because there's no young people. When there's less young people, there's less crime. Young
That could be one of the
males
reasons.
typically are the perpetrators of crime. So when you say crime is going down, it correlates with a lack of young people. That's the spurious correlation I'm pointing out. You say crime is down. We don't need police. No, hold on.
I did not say that. I said the opposite. I said we should fund police more. Did you hear me say that?
When you were
did
saying we
did you
don't-
or did you
Yes,
not hear
I
me
get
say
it.
that?
The
Okay,
point
so
is-
what you just said was fucking dishonest, right?
On the surface level, what happens is people who don't know why a thing happens try to ascribe the wrong solution.
When have I tried? Can you identify a single thing that I've ascribed the wrong, reason why crime is going down?
Literally the subject matter we're talking about.
When did I ascribe a reason why crime was going
You said population's growing.
down? Hang on. You brought up population. Did I bring up a reason why crime is going down? Do you remember?
Indeed,
No, I
you
didn't.
don't know.
Tim, when are you going to start using this gavel?
I did
right
not
there.
state that.
No,
No,
the skibbity. Who's this?
I
What is
wanna
this?
use it.
Kellen brought a
Can I
skibbity.
just be like, say Christ is Lord?
Wait, hang on a second. wait a second. So
Say it.
didn't I bring up, and you can tell me if you disagree with this, maybe you think I brought it up for some other reason, that crime is going down to suggest to you that it's less of a problem than it was before.
You were suggesting we don't need intervention because crime is going down.
No, I'm saying, do you agree it's less of a problem than it was 30 years ago? Of course it is, right?
Wait, what?
We're not- we're not-
Is
we're not talking-
crime less of a problem now than it was 30 years ago?
It depends where.
No. Wait, what?
Over on the net in New
Crime is a
York,
problem
on net in the
always, and
country.
it's of same value.
I love the
The value or urgency of crime hasn't changed at all.
So the urgency of crime isn't affected by how much crime there is?
Let me ask you
Wait,
guys a
I want to
question
heir
for you.
you say that, Tim. Is the urgency of crime
need to lay
is
down.
problem affected by how much crime there is? Is it?
The urgency of yes. The more crime there is, the more we have to be.
So
concerned
crime is
about.
less urgent now than it was 30 years ago. Is that right? Why not?
Do you know why the murder rate went down?
No, Can you answer my question?
I am answering your question, but you're not smart enough to understand complex situations.
Listen. You can answer. A question is not an answer. So I'm not sure. You're asking, do you understand murder rates? I don't know.
I'm going to
do you mean
pause
by
real
that?
quick and just go to comprehensive skill.
Yeah.
There's an issue we see in Congress all the time where someone will ask a question that requires a comprehensive answer. The left and the right does this, where you can't, it's the question, when did you stop beating your wife? It's like, well, hold on there a minute. The answer is not a specific time.
Why don't you answer? Why is crime less urgent now when there's less crime? Why is crime just as urgent or more urgent now when
Okay.
there's less crime?
Do me a favor, don't talk for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Please.
Do you know why the murder rate has gone down substantially in the United States?
Probably, as you said, few young people. That'll be something.
No. Any idea?
You tell me.
Internet.
Cell phones.
Yeah.
The crime is still happening, but because people have faster ability to call 911 and ambulances arrive on scene much more quickly, the rate at which you die from the violent crime has gone down. What ended up happening is with the ubiquity of cell phones in the late 2000s, we see a big drop off in the murder rate. What we ended up seeing from many politicians was murder is down, we're winning. What they didn't understand was that attempted murder or violent aggravated assaults remained static. So in the 90s, if you got stabbed, someone would run and try and find a phone, you died. In 2010, you got stabbed, someone took their cell phone, called 911, and within minutes, the paramedics were there decreasing the amount at which someone got murdered. So is the urgency of crime changed because murder has gone down? No. It's still happening, but with the ability to call law enforcement and first responders quickly.
It's not just murder, Tim. You know that.
Everything
is down over the course of over a long period of time. It's down.
Correlates with the decrease in young people.
Okay, but I'm asking you, doesn't that make it so that crime is less of an issue now in the United States than it was before?
May I ask a conditional?
Can you answer that first? Wait, can you answer that first? Is crime less of a problem now than it was?
It like 5
you
times
haven't.
already.
No, answer this question. Is crime less of a problem now than 30, 40? No, you said a bunch of shit about cell phones, and this is why murder rates are down.
The problem of crime is static. It is unchanging. Crime is always bad.
So crime, whether or not crime is a problem, does not bear on like its incidence, whether it's happening a lot.
You need to get like shapes to put in a bucket so you can understand which shape it's in which
if there's one crime that's just as bad, just as urgent as 1,000 crimes.
No.
Okay, so then what's the issue here? Why don't you answer the question?
It's like your brain is what were those Duplos?
I don't know what a Duplo is.
Exactly.
What's a Duplo?
Duplo were the really big Legos because little kids didn't have the ability to comprehend small shapes.
Wait, no, but hang on.
You keep doing the same thing where you say, what about this problem? Do you agree with an absolute? I don't. What about this absolute?
Is
I don't
more
agree
crime worse?
More crime is worse.
Okay, but so now that we have less crime, if we have less crime, is that
Can I
less
come
of a
in
problem?
on that, please?
Oh my God, he's retarded.
Can I come in on that, please?
Yeah, go for it.
Is more crime worse?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. You said earlier Kamala Harris is better than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Okay. Every single crime committed by an immigrant, legal or illegal, is optional. They didn't need to be in the country. She wanted to increase immigration, and under her watch, 10 million illegals came into the country. So therefore, your policies are directly supporting an increase in crime.
No, so first of all, there could be a lot of different reasons why.
Oh, now he found nuance. Now he found the Legos.
It's not nuance. There you go. There could be a lot of different. Hang on,
I can get granular when it affects my politics.
It's not disingenuous at all.
Yeah, it is.
So hang on. Would you vote?
It's absolute when it applies to your political opponents, but it's granular when it applies to you.
No. Shut the fuck up, dude. Hang on. Let's do it one-on-one. Hey, real quick.
The whole time.
Real quick.
Please.
So, would you vote for Trump if you knew that it would increase slightly the crime rate versus Kamala Harris?
But that's untrue, though.
No, if it were, but I didn't have breakfast. I didn't have breakfast. Holy shit, dude! It's called a fucking hypothetical.
Why? Why would crime go up? Why would crime go up? Why?
Hang on. I've been hostile to you the entire show. There's no need to be passive aggressive.
Just
no need
answer
to be rude.
the question, bro. You guys are fucking.
I can. Okay, I can. In what sense? As in, why? Why would it? No. Why would it?
So let me just give me a second. What he's going to do is he's going to say, would you vote for Trump if it would increase the crime?
Yes.
In certain circumstances where Trump would do one thing that would be a net positive with a net negative, he will then turn it around and present with an absolute saying, aha, you support crime.
This is exactly why I'm asking you a follow-up. Because
this is what I'm saying. Just because even if I bought onto your assumption that Kamala Harris would increase crime in this country, I don't buy that assumption. I don't think that's borne out. I don't know. You're distinguishing also.
He's saying Trump.
You're distinguishing also between like immigrant crime and non-immigrant crime. Basically, what I'm saying,
it's because all immigrant crime is an option. If they weren't here, they wouldn't commit the crime.
All I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of different reasons that go into why you would vote for someone. What I'm trying to isolate Tim on is crime less of an issue today than it was 30 years ago? And so regardless of my answer to whether I would vote for Kamala Harris, notwithstanding the increase in immigrant crime, your assumption is.
Let me answer this, okay? If there are 1,000 people in a football field and there's a 10% crime rate, we go, oh man, 100 people got mugged. That's 100 muggings. That's crazy. We got to do something about that. 50 years later, this football field is decrepit and only 100 people are there. The same amount of crime happens, 10%. It's only 10. Crime's not a problem anymore, is it? Actually, the crime rate stayed the same. So there's something that I refer to as the scaling problem. And I'll give you a good example. We experienced this as a growing nation, which is why I made the point about how life used to be worse. It certainly is better now, but doesn't mean we ignore our problems. Let's say that Apple releases 100 iPhones to a bunch of celebrities. They all go online and they show off their new iPhones, but there's a 1% failure rate among these phones. One celebrity comes out and says, my phone broke. No one cares. Nobody cares. Because one guy had a broken phone. Who cares? But that's a 1% failure rate. Let's say after this, Apple releases 100 million phones to the public with the same failure rate. Mm-hmm. Overnight, there are 1 million Instagram posts. 100 million phones get released with a 1% failure rate. 1 million people are spam blasting on Instagram. My phone is broken instantly. Everyone's like, holy shit. What is wrong with these iPhones? Despite the fact the rate is the same, this is, in a system, the larger it becomes, the lower there is a tolerance for failure. The reason why crime becomes a problem and it's inverse. You can argue if crime is going down, isn't it not as much of a problem? Not necessarily. If we are dealing with a population of 1 million people and we have 1 million muggings, everyone got mugged. The next year, half the people leave because of the crime, and now there's only 500,000 muggings. We go, it's not a problem anymore because crime's cut in half.
You realize what you've done, right?
No. The issue still is everyone's still getting mugged. Crime is still a problem.
You realize what you've done, right?
What have I done?
So now when Trump cites the decrease in crime when he does these deployments, that doesn't matter, right?
In what context?
You just said, essentially, you can't just look at crime rates going down and make any kind of conclusion about it.
Relative to population size.
The current situation isn't better in terms of crime overall because the crime rate's going down. That's fucking simplistic. And so when Trump Trump is going to claim credit for decreased crime rates because of his deployments, you're going to say, that doesn't tell you shit,
I'm
right?
going to look at the camera because I don't think there's any reason to say it to him.
Do you realize what you've done?
When I said crime relative to population size is different from overall crime over the course of a year, I don't think Pisco can comprehend what that means.
No, I think you realize that the danger that you've done just
say derp.
What you've just done is, if you're discounting the
is
overall
Trump gonna
benefit,
remove half the
overall
population?
benefit of crime going down over the course of 30 years, and you're saying, oh, you can't read into these crime rates that go down all the time. Who knows whether they're going down, up and down? You can't read into it. It's still a problem, still equally
You
a
just
problem.
hear like a dial
And
tone.
when Trump cites that very same statistics in the context of his deployments, you're going to be saying the same thing, aren't you?
So you're arguing that in the course of 6 months, Trump will say, in 6 months' time, with the same population, the same demographics, we deployed law enforcement and crime went down, is identical to a 30-year population shift with crime.
You tell me, are you going to read into those
that's
stats?
not the same.
Are you going to?
I just don't. I do think Pisco's smart. I think he's just intentionally being a sophist.
In what sense is that sophistry? So the crime rate going down over a course of
A
time.
1 month deployment is different from a 30-year demographic shift. Is that hard to understand?
Yeah. So if
it is hard to understand. Okay.
The 1 month deployment, if it produces some lower amount of crime in that,
I'm not even saying I would agree with Trump.
Well, do you?
Trump won't ban TikTok. That's violating the law.
I agree with that.
He should ban TikTok.
No, I agree that he's violating the law. Why do you care? He could just say that the law's bad, and you would support him, right?
Based.
No. It's a weird world where it's like, what you do is.
You can't appeal to the law and just say it doesn't matter in another context, can you?
In what context does it not matter?
In the context of the military deployment, you say it doesn't matter if he breaks the law. But in TikTok, you're like, he's breaking the law by not enforcing TikTok.
Just like you said that you think trans people should be allowed to have guns, but other.
I don't know. Wait, what's the?
You let me finish?
Yeah, what's the comparison there?
That the DSM-5 lists categories of mental disorders that you've personally decided some should and should not.
I haven't decided anything.
So trans people shouldn't be allowed to have guns.
Well, no, I haven't decided.
Should trans people allowed to have guns?
Transgenderism is in the DSM-5.
It was taken up for activist reasons.
Do you agree that not all transgender people?
Gender dysphoria is in the DSM-5.
Not all transgender people have gender dysphoria, correct?
Okay.
What?
Do you agree with that? Yes or no?
That
No.
not all,
No, that's
No,
So
they
you-
all do.
Okay.
No.
That's not true.
Because some are like trans being transvestite or something. It's like a weird cultural argument.
No, because
You're changing the
they're
argument.
different terms.
Just address what I asked.
Yeah.
Do you believe that there are certain DSM-5 categories that are and are not disqualifying from owning a gun?
Yeah, under our constitutional precedent, that's right.
Do you think Trump is wrong to say that people with gender dysphoria shouldn't be allowed to have guns?
He didn't say that.
No, the news media reported trans as a colloquialism.
He didn't say gender dysphoria.
He didn't say anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait, hey, so whatever the reporting isn't specific to gender dysphoria. That's not
It says trans.
Yeah, but not all trans people have gender dysphoria.
So
you agree with that?
stop being so obtuse. You know what I'm asking you.
No, I don't know what you're asking me.
Do you believe that some categories of DSM-5 are and some are not disqualifying from owning a gun?
Yeah, I don't know which those are because I'm not a Second Amendment scholar, and I don't know what the test is.
So you have a moral determination on when some laws should or should not be enforced.
I'm specifically no. The argument from the Second Amendment perspective is not that you don't apply the law. It's what does the law actually cover, right? Saying that the Second Amendment, the scope of the Second Amendment.
Do you believe that there are some laws that are unjust?
I just want to make sure you understand this. Just because
You can't answer the question.
Just because
Are there some laws that are unjust and should be abolished?
Yes.
So there are certain times where you think it's good that people should violate the law.
I can think of times when it would be good to violate the law. Yes, I can.
So why would you
He who
act like
saves this
I'm any
country
different
violates
from
no
you?
law.
No, because in general, right? Just because hypothetically, I can come
Sometimes
up with
violent law is good, sometimes it's bad.
So you who discount hypotheticals, that's crazy to consider hypotheticals.
No, you're making things up.
Okay.
I don't know what you're.
So in some hypotheticals,
You live in a world where only you have the authority to determine when laws should be broken, and other people who hold the exact same moral standard
everyone
don't
agrees.
get to.
Everyone, I think, agrees that there are some cases.
Then why did you ask me?
Because you seem to think that in the main,
Never
the law
said
should
that.
be followed. You don't agree that in the main the law should be followed, unless you mean
The main?
like unless you reach a threshold of harm that you should not.
When we started
ignore the
this
law.
show, I said sometimes it's good to break the law. Sometimes laws are unjust, and law does not mean
So
morality.
Trump might say it's good to break the law for TikTok. Do you agree?
I do not agree.
So then you should just be arguing whether the TikTok ban is good or bad. Why are you saying it's illegal?
Because a law was passed, Trump is violating.
What do you care? You know,
Tim thinks the law is morally correct.
no, but
The law that was passed is morally correct, and Trump is violating.
no, but you should just say it's morally good to ban TikTok.
Indeed it is.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So why do you appeal to the legality of it?
Same reason you do.
Why?
Political power.
Okay. So you're saying it's in bad faith. You're doing it in bad faith.
It's not bad faith. It's my moral worldview.
Okay.
Are you doing it in bad faith when you do it?
No, because I think I actually have a respect for the law and our system and our institutions.
No, you
and our-
don't.
I think I do.
Should people go to prison federally for smoking pot?
No.
Oh, he's got no respect
Yeah. I don't think that. But hang on. Do I think it's legal for them to do so? I think it's legal for them to do so. And
It's not a Schedule I drug.
hang on. I think it's legal for them to be sent to prison for violating the Controlled Substance Act. I think that's legal to do. But
Should everyone follow
They should
that
change
law?
the law. They should change the law.
Oh, okay. So should people be like, so nobody should stop smoking pot? Schedule I.
I didn't say that.
Should police arrest people? Should the federal FPS arrest people in DC?
I don't think it's a high priority.
an ounce of pot?
Because you
Yes.
can't,
Yes or no? Yes or no? Should the law be followed?
So I think the law should be followed. I do think the law should
Okay,
be
let's
followed.
lock them all up.
But that doesn't mean that you should lock everyone up, right? You agree with that? Just because there's technical violations of the law doesn't mean that we should have
My
maximum
argument.
enforcement.
So you agree with me?
No, but you're talking
You agree
about
with me?
No.
Sometimes you don't follow the law; it's immoral.
Tim, just because there's enforcement discretion, we can't have perfect enforcement of the laws all the time, doesn't mean that we should violate the law, right?
You agree with me?
No, hang on. You
don't agree with me.
You're suggesting that it's okay to violate the law, but the government to violate the law.
You agree with me?
No, it's not violating the law not to lock everyone up in prison for pot. That's not violating the law.
I consider myself to be a
Tim, do you agree with that? Not locking up everybody for smoking pot isn't breaking the law. Do you agree with that?
not locking up everybody.
Correct.
Is not breaking the law.
Correct.
It
So-
would be impossible. You would need a panopticon AI flying sky ship to be able to. So arguing physical impossibilities. But here's the point, as I will express it. Pisco plays a game where he is allowed to bend the rules when it applies to his political ideology. I agree that he does, and he can.
When did I bend the
Literally
rules?
just right now.
When did I bend the rules?
You told me I was wrong for appealing to legality on the issue of TikTok,
Yeah, because you don't care about the law.
and you don't either.
I do care about the law.
You don't.
Yeah, I do.
You're a moral absolutist who thinks you are superior to other people.
You appeal to the law when you don't care about the law. I appeal to the law and I do care about the law. That's the difference.
You don't.
Yeah.
You
Prove
just
it. Show
claim
it.
that other people who disagree with me must not care about the law because they won't follow my ideology.
No, that's not true at all. Just
You're
because,
an authoritarian and I'm an anarchist.
You think you're an anarchist. You're supporting these massive military deployments all over the country.
What does anarchy mean?
And you call yourself an anarchist.
What does anarchy mean?
You're supporting Trump, like deporting people because they're critical of Israel.
What does anarchy mean?
What do you mean? Anarchy is the
his
belief
view?
that government is unjust and the
Incorrect.
Sorry, can we pause a second? there?
Incorrect.
I don't think that's Tim's view.
It is Tim's view.
When did
that
Tim
your view?
We had a conversation about Mahmoud Khalil, and he
No,
supported
no,
it.
no,
So
no.
let me just stress something real quick. What Pisco does is he tries to trap you into an absolute position that you will deny 800,000 times, like
Yeah,
I've done throughout the entirety of the
I
show.
can tell.
I can tell for the last 2 hours.
Wait, hang on a second.
Right.
You deny that you supported Mahmoud Khalil's deportation. You said
You have
Hang on,
Whoa! You supported that deportation.
Clip this, guys.
For Israel or what?
Clip this, guys. This is a really, really great one. He said, I support in general people being deported over Israel. Then, when challenged, he did the Mott and Bailey back to a single individual with certain contexts.
Well, that's why he's being deported, isn't he? And the same thing with Reza Ozturk.
Didn't he call to destroy Western
My
civilization?
point is made.
Hang on a second. He's being deported because he was critical of Israel, isn't
You
it?
ask a question about a specific criminal context, but then try to claim-
Criminal context. What is he being charged with criminally?
Well, let's see. You see, this is the game he's playing.
What's the game?
He'll say something. You'll say something like, "Here's a guy who stabbed the baby. Should go to jail." And he was black, and you're like, "Yes." He was like, "Well, Tim said black people should go to jail." It's like, what the fuck are you talking
Wait, no.
about?
You supported someone who's
One
being
guy,
deported
one time. One guy, one
because
time.
he was
is not
critical of
everyone all the
Israel.
time.
That's why, and you did support that. I mean, I had the
I did
conversation
not
with you.
because of
support-
that, or because he did other things that were objectively
He's
immoral?
lying.
No, I'm not lying. What's the lie? What are you in favor of his deportation then for?
I'm not.
You said you were when we had this
He
conversation.
hates Americans shouldn't be in the country.
No, I said that the State Department has unilateral authority under the law to deport whoever they want.
You think it's wrong for them to try to deport Mahmoud Khalil?
Does your brain work, brother?
Well, can you answer that?
Do you understand the distinction between someone speaking and getting deported and the State Department having the authority to do so under color of law?
So do you agree with them doing that?
I believe that Marco Rubio has the authority under the law
You
as
agree with
passed
his
by the American
exercise of
people.
authority in that context?
Sometimes maybe.
It's
in
perfectly
Mahmoud Khalil's
consistent.
case, do you support his deportation?
I think that's a great case. It's perfectly
I
consistent
would
with
say
his
answer it.
overall
C
position.
minus. I don't care.
It's
whether,
perfectly
whether you
consistent
care or not, do you think
with
that
his
it should
position.
happen?
I believe that the State Department has the authority to do so,
not
and
asking
I
whether
don't
they have
care whether they
authority.
do. I don't care whether they do or don't.
You know these answers.
No, you're saying that you don't care, as in you're indifferent. You're indifferent whether they do it or not.
Indeed. So let me say this. When I said in the last debate, Marco Rubio, under the law, has the authority to do so, and I don't really care. He then came here and said, Tim thinks people should be deported for speech about Israel. You see the distinction
No,
there?
you're fine with it. You're fine with them doing that, aren't you?
Fine with and don't care are different things.
So are you okay with it? You're not
Indifferent.
against it, right? You're not against it.
Neither.
You're neither in favor or against it.
He shouldn't be in the country. Tim wishes they had a better reason.
Sure.
So we can resolve that conversation.
Well, it's more so on matters for which I have no strong opinions. I don't know what you
So
want
you're
me to say.
indifferent about whether or not the country is deporting people based on their support for Israel.
You're talking about a single individual in a certain
No,
context.
but are you indifferent on that pattern? And do you think that's been established?
What pattern? Ask the specific question.
So are you indifferent as to whether the country is, if the country is deporting people based
Depending on the circumstances of deportation, I may or may not care.
Okay.
We should not be deporting people based off of their view of Israel. It would be better if it was like their view of America.
Yes.
This guy hates America, therefore let's get him out of America. Do him a favor.
There's also the organization of protests rallying the American population against American interests, which is not a democratic process. It's foreign influence. So there's a lot of issues there. And my response is not that he should be deported. It's, I don't have a strong opinion one way or the other.
You don't have a strong view on whether, if it's true that the government is deporting people on the basis of their support.
If
If it's true.
don't know. I don't make judgments without enough information.
Sorry,
You
your
do.
name's Josh, right?
Joel.
Joel, my bad. You look like a Joel. You look like Joel from Last of Us. All right. Joel said he would care if the government's doing that. He said, I would deport people based on their statements against America, but he would have a problem if the administration was doing.
My position is similar to yours in the sense that let's try to get the right laws that actually align with morality. We all agree that you can have unjust laws, right? We all agree with that. And so we'd like to have good laws. So ideal scenario, change the law and make it good, right? That's the ideal scenario. In the meantime, the idea of, working with courts and establishing precedent, getting people on technicalities, right? We've seen, historically, we've seen mob bosses in cleaning up New York who were ultimately brought in and, because of jaywalking, when it's like, we're not really concerned about jaywalking, but that was through the legal system as the law currently rests. That was the only way that we could bring this guy who was actually doing really terrible stuff to justice. So ideally, you'd like to change the law to where you could actually get people for doing terrible things. In the meantime, though, as you're seeking to have better laws that align with justice, using whatever technicality, using whatever's at your disposal to use to get people who hate Israel, nope, don't care, people who hate America out of America, I'm for.
Joel, can I ask where you live in the country?
I live in Texas.
In Texas. Would you have a problem with the Trump administration deploying a bunch of Marines in the town that you live?
To do what?
To do law enforcement stuff, to pick up, garbage and
to get a
enforce
to
it.
get
Garbage and law
a, to get a
enforcement,
bunch of illegals out of my town, fantastic. I'd be out there with my daughters giving lemonade.
You don't share the same concern as the framers in terms of the standing.
No,
military
because
stuff.
the country is not the same as it was for the framers. This is the whole point.
Okay.
It's not even close to the same. The country that we once had, it died about 1,000 times over. It's been buried 6 feet underground. That country does not exist.
Are you concerned about the potential for rights violations?
Did the framers have 30 million illegals? Did they have the Crips and Bloods shooting each other in
They
Chicago?
didn't even have restrictive immigration laws in the framing. They didn't have immigration laws.
Because we had a massive
You also had to be a white
landmass.
property owner to vote.
Correct. Just for the record, we can go over voting. We can go over it. I think
Repeal
you
the
need,
19th. Is that
Should
where
black
you're
people
going?
vote?
of course, but repeal a lot more than that.
What is your angle here?
You've got to be
Hang
married.
on, whoa.
You've got to be married.
What is your angle?
Military, three kids.
Net positive
Gents,
tax paying.
1 second, please. Right.
Unless you're
We had millions of millions of
hang on,
slaves.
gents. Right, shut
No,
up.
only
shut up,
Pisco
shut up,
can't
shut up,
vote.
shut up,
Everyone
shut
gets
up.
to vote for him.
Please.
This is the nicest
Reed,
guy
can you
here.
ask me? Could you?
He's very respectful.
Could you ask me the question you just tried to
Yes.
slip by again?
No. I'm asking you. Do you think the
No. Ask
do
the
you-
question. Ask the
do you
question you did
think?
before. Ask the
Hang
question.
on.
Don't be
Do you
slippery,
think that
don't be
black people
slippery.
should vote? That's what I
sure.
asked you.
Yes.
Okay.
Who should vote? What?
Black people
sure.
should vote.
Yeah.
I think.
What a weird.
Can I go there?
Why is it a weird disingenuous question?
Can I answer the
Because you're
question?
trying to. Okay, sorry.
Wait, no. Can you explain that? Why do you think
They're
it's a
men
disingenuous
Because
question?
if they have
it's
jobs,
pointed.
if they have kids.
Why do you think it's pointed?
When we're done.
Because
Before-
why
Be a
should I
small
why should I
percentage.
want
But yeah.
why should I want discrimination on the grounds of
Because
voting
you
access and
literally
race?
in this conversation before, though you might have tried to back away from it.
No,
said
I
that
didn't.
You,
Who do you think should vote?
So I think people should have the right to vote. All U.S. citizens.
I
should
had
vote.
somebody the other day that said, Joel, if you had your way, there'd only be like 14 people would be allowed to vote. I prefer, personally, I think that's still 13 too many. But
You don't want women to vote, right?
that's right. How'd you know that?
It's the Christian National. It's the same kind of
Right,
Andrew
right.
Wilson type
So
people.
yeah, no. So I think you should be Christian. I do.
Okay.
Right. Not a test for office. That's insane. Just a test for office and voting. Right. Religious test for both. But I think you should be Christian. I think
We
you
should
be
repeal
male.
that part of the Constitution about religious tests for office.
Yeah, you should amend it. Right. You should change the law to what I think is just. Yes,
no
absolutely.
Jews in government, right?
Are religious Jew? Like it
matter?
Judaism?
No, Jewish, religious, Jewish.
Yes. If it's a religious Jew,
So Ben Shapiro should not be allowed to hold office.
yes, because he blasphemes the Lord Jesus Christ. That's what his world.
Well, let's just be fair. You could ask him about any other religion too.
Yeah, no Muslims.
Yeah, no Muslims. Yeah,
atheists.
it's not. I'm not just picking on the Jews.
Yeah.
Although I do think that Judaism has been uniquely pernicious in its influence over America. That doesn't mean every single Jewish person, ethnically speaking. There's a whole thing we could talk about with that. But Judaism as a worldview, I do believe it's uniquely pernicious. Islam, just for the record, right? I'm pro the Crusades. I like the Crusades. I think there were some abuses, but I think most of them were good. We've had a long-standing 13 centuries with Islam, so I'm not a friend of Islam.
I have an important question for you.
Yeah.
In your system, should Pisco be allowed to vote?
Are you married?
I have a partner.
No.
That's based.
No.
Only married people should vote.
One vote per household.
This is what it is. You should be a heritage American. I'll define that. Heritage American, I don't take as just being white. Okay? I do think that Europeans are pretty dang heritage
What race do you think
American.
I am?
Gay, I think. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I have a female partner. That I'm not gay.
Oh, you have a female partner.
yeah.
Why'd you say partner?
What's wrong with partner? It's
Because it sounds gay.
Girl, why don't you say girlfriend?
So this is it's actually
That's
really
weird.
interesting. As a total aside, the left and the right speak different English.
Yeah, they really do.
yeah.
So, okay.
Are you triggered by the word partner?
No, I'm not.
Well, it
I'm not
raises
triggered by
sexual
anything.
difference.
So,
Hang on.
real quick,
Are you
heritage
triggered by the word
American.
partner?
So wait, this is important.
Heritage
What is a
American.
heritage American?
A heritage American, this is my assessment. A heritage American, and this should be required for voting. You should have a stake in the nation's past, and you should have a stake in the future. That's why I say marriage. Not everybody can have kids, but I think marriage, in a general, universal sense, what it says is, I'm looking forward to posterity. That's one of the chief
But not
purposes.
bloodline based, right? So not race based.
So what?
Or is there some racial element?
I'll get to it.
Yeah.
So
it's not so out of
heritage-
pocket question for me to inquire about
heritage-
your guys' views on racial
Yeah,
beliefs.
so
Black
it's a good
Americans
question.
are heritage
So you
Heritage
think it's a
American.
good question, not disingenuous to ask you this?
It's fine to
Okay,
ask. Now, for myself, I'll give my answer, but it's fine to ask.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. So Heritage American, I think, is 3 generations on both sides, or minimum of 5th generation on one side. You have to have been here for a while, right? This idea is, it's not a 15 Haitians. Are not going to assimilate. They're not going to be Americans, right? The Ronald Reagan thing, like, well, I can move to Scotland, but I'll never be a Scotsman. I can move to
Can I ask
Japan,
what
but I'll
if
never be
you're 25%? Can I ask real quick?
No, I got to ask him. You said 3 generations on both sides. Does that mean like great grandma, grandma, mom, and then you can vote, or do you mean grandma, mom, then you can vote?
I think grandma. Start with grandma. So you're the third grandma moved here, right? And then it's mom, and then it's You.
And then you
so
can
on
vote.
both, yes, on both sides.
The grandchildren.
Correct.
are
The
heritage.
grandchildren. And I get that even from like a general equity theonomic principle from the Old Testament, that when it came to immigrating into Israel, you couldn't be exploited, you couldn't be mistreated, you could be a sojourner. And the nice thing about sojourners, here's a nifty trick. Sojourners eventually go back. They don't stay forever. But for somebody who is really staying there forever, but they intended to become a part of Israel, there were a lot of rights that they would have. But there were certain things that were reserved until the third generation, such as temple access and worship and these kinds of things. So third generation on both sides, or fifth generation on one side. So that's heritage. You actually have a heritage. You have a stake in the past. Marriage presupposing children. I know that there are exceptions, but so that's why I'm not going to say you got to have 5 kids or 8 or 1. Married.
What if you're a grandparent?
So that's future
If
stake.
you have one grandparent who's Jewish, is that enough?
Jewish ethnically?
Yeah, Jewish ethnically or religiously as well. So if you have 25% of your blood,
No, that's no. It would be your religion.
Okay, so
your religion,
it wouldn't
not
matter.
your parents, not your grandparents.
It wouldn't
your
turn
religion
on the racial identity of your forefathers. It wouldn't. Your
Third
right to
generation.
vote.
Third generation.
So there would
Thomas Clarence
Yeah.
is a heritage American. I get flack for it all the time because I've got a lot of guys who follow me that are to my right. And they're like, that's the gayest thing you've ever said. Thomas Clarence, I believe, is a heritage American. He's smarter than I am. I think he's a good man.
Help me out. It sounds like the Nuremberg.
He's also, I would say,
sounds
that
like the Nuremberg laws.
He's
Can
one
you
of
help me
my.
out?
He's one of my favorite Anglo-Protestants.
Okay.
Thomas Clarence.
Can you help me? Because the comparison to the Nuremberg laws, everyone's going to make it. That's the same kind of analysis, the race analysis in terms of, define what it is to be an Aryan, define what it is to be a Jew,
Right.
that kind of stuff. It sounds like you're incorporating some of those ideas.
It doesn't sound like that at all.
Okay.
So that's why I'm saying third generation on both sides or fifth generation on one side. That's a heritage American. That means you have a stake in the country's past. You should not be speaking to the country's future if you've had no stake here in the past. Then also married, which presupposes posterity, that I actually have a vested interest in the country's future. I do think that you should be a man. I think the 19th Amendment has absolutely ruined the country, among other things, but that's one of them. And with the male piece, one is I actually do think that politics is war without the bullets, and so I do think that it should be those who are predisposed towards war to be involved in that practice. But beyond that, it's also representative government. So what I'm looking at is male as head of household. So women don't have a voice; they have a voice. And sometimes a voice can be stronger than a vote, just for the record. That man, it's fathers, it's uncles, it's brothers, it's husbands, representing their wives, their daughters, their sisters, these things.
Last night, we were talking on the show about the U.S. conquering the United Kingdom, for which I said, after the U.S. invades, we will temporarily install Milo Yiannopoulos as viceroy until we can reestablish the crown, under which it would be the House of Benjamin. Carl
Is he
Benjamin.
gay still?
What do you mean, dude? He's the gayest guy in the world.
No, but is he like, there's gay,
asked
and
if
then
I was
there's
gay.
I'm in, well,
Okay,
you said partner.
okay, guys.
You said partner. I
Milo's
wasn't trying to
super
pick
gay.
on
He's
you.
never not going to be gay, bro.
But he says he abstains.
But like he actually is he a Christian? Isn't he a professing
He
Christian?
says he's attracted to men, but he will abstain from engaging
Right.
in
So
homosexual
with that, just real quick, I would say that is still a sin of the heart. If in my heart I'm desiring something that God says is an abomination, that's a sin.
Have you ever had gay thoughts?
Okay, so we're about out of time.
Never.
And the point I was going to make is that I've
All glory be to
changed
God.
my mind. I thought that it would be good to install the House of Benjamin as the new crown of the UK,
Okay.
and long may he reign. And then, upon hearing all of this, I've decided the actual solution should be, after we conquer the UK, temporarily have Milo get things in order before the House of Benjamin can take over. We then restore the United States under the crown with Carl Benjamin as our king,
Wait,
and
Sargon?
no one can vote.
Sargon of Akkad? You like that guy?
He's great.
I just think
No one can vote. Carl's the king. Tell me, my
Universal-
liege, what you need. and we're
universal
good.
suffrage was a really, really bad idea.
You'd like King Carl Benjamin. Do you know?
Yeah, I'd have to look into him. I've heard the name.
What do you think of Barack? Can you say something nice about Barack Obama?
Barack Obama?
Yeah.
He deported
taste
a
in
ton
man.
of people. God bless him.
Oh, I can say some real good stuff about him.
No.
No one
don't like
kills
Barack.
kids like Barack Obama. I mean, when you need
Wait.
when you need brown Pakistani kids bombed, you go to Barack.
Or
He'll take care
Netanyahu.
of it.
Or
That's true,
Netanyahu. I just want to say, are we about to finish the episode?
Yeah.
Can I plug something?
Yeah, well, everyone's going to get a chance to
Okay.
do the thing,
Right Response Ministries on YouTube. Right Response Ministries on YouTube, and then on Twitter, the handle is @RightResponseM, as in Ministries. We're trying to grow our channels. We'd appreciate the follow. Thank you, Tim, for having me.
Pisco's Hour on YouTube, Pisco Litty on Twitter. Really enjoyed it. Listen, I think in your heart of hearts, you gotta criticize this guy for deploying in your city. All right,
I'm asking him to.
if he does so, and if he's breaking the law doing so, I think you got to stand up for your fellow Chicagoan.
I am personally requesting Donald Trump, hear me. My people need your help. The National Guard is welcome in my neighborhood.
They do.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and appreciate the conversation.
I've changed my mind. I don't want a single American in my country after my name's Connor Tomlinson. You can hear me talk on YouTube at Tomlinson Talks. I write for Courage Media, and I post on X about the fall of my country at @con_Tomlinson.
One last thing real quick, covenantbible.org is our church. So if you're in Central Texas, if you ever want to join us on a Sunday at 10 a.m., it's Covenant Bible Church, covenantbible.org.
Right on. Everybody, this is fun. Thanks so much for hanging out.
Thank you.
The future plan is we're thinking every other week is going to be a live show. We're actually in talks about doing a deal for 24 episodes, 24 live shows per year. It's expensive to do. It's hard to do. And then we've got a bunch of other ideas. Working with Alex Stein, we're talking about doing some game show episodes where we do trivia. And then you guys can just answer Jeopardy questions or something.
That'd be fun.
And I think it'd be real fun. And then as well as we want to do these like 1 versus 20 debates. So a lot of fun stuff
Is that
coming.
like Jubilee
stuff?
Yeah, but we can do it better.
I got asked, and then it just disappeared. They
ghosted you?
Yeah, I got asked to be on there, and then I think it's because the middle guy. I wasn't the one guy. I was going to be one of the 20 Christian nationalists, but I think it's because the one guy backed out. And I like to
makes
believe,
sense.
I go to sleep at night thinking it's because he saw my name on the list.
Indeed.
He had to quit.
All right, everybody, we're back tonight at 8 p.m. Timcast IRL. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all then.